Hey guys, this is Latios, and today I have a little bit of a different video for you guys. I'm joined by Chase and David, and the three of us are just going to have kind of a casual discussion about the next LUTI season, more specifically how we feel about the maps that are being voted on for the next LUTI season, and then we'll take a look at the public voting results and compare them to our personal views on each map. For those of you who don't know, LUTI is basically a Splatoon league that places teams into different divisions based on their skill level. Within each division, you have groups, and you have a regular season where you play best of 9 sets against the teams within your own group, and the two highest finishers from each group move on to the playoffs for that division. LUTI has a preset map list for each season, and then they create a map list of 9 maps for each week of the regular season. And this season, LUTI actually decided to implement a public voting feature where anyone in the server can vote on what maps they enjoy playing on, what maps they don't enjoy, and what maps they're kind of borderline on. So yeah, this is a bit of context for those who may not be familiar with LUTI, and now I'm going to turn over to David, who actually is the one who came up with this idea. So, yeah, what are your opening thoughts before we get started?
Something that I really wanted for the community is to make a map list that will be both entertaining for players and for spectators because that's how we're going to grow the game. Game theory states that the best way to make something entertaining is for it to be balanced because that balance inspires creativity. So, what we're looking for here are competitively viable maps because they are well balanced.
Okay, and then one thing that I just want to go over real quick before we get into the maps is um, the maps aren't just important for those who are actually playing in LUTI because remember, these teams that are in LUTI, they're also going to be doing scrims against other teams. And so these map lists are released before the maps are actually played for that week, meaning teams already know what maps they're going to be playing on, so they're going to try to maximize their practice by practicing on these maps. So what that means is any team that scrims a LUTI team, even if the team that's scrimming the LUTI team isn't also in LUTI, they still have to play on these maps in scrims. So it's really important that we get these maps right because everyone in this community, even those who aren't in LUTI, are going to be practicing on and playing on these maps for several weeks during the season. So it's really important that we make sure we get these maps right. So if you guys are ready, let's get into the maps.
Let's do it.
All right, so the first map we're going to be talking about is Ancho-V. We're just going to go alphabetical here.
Okay.
Ancho-V is being voted on for two modes, and those being TC and Rainmaker. So let's start off with Ancho-V TC, and then Chase, I'm just going to start with you. How do you feel about this
Anchovy
map?
TC. I think this map is actually pretty good. I think it's definitely one of the better tower control maps. In terms of like competitive viability. Yeah, no, I think it's definitely up there. I would say like top top three maps actually for me.
Okay, and then David, any thoughts?
Um, I'm going to be using a lot of game logic
Hmm.
to support my decisions for the balance. Tower control checks off almost all of the good things that a tower control's anchovy checks off all of the good things that a tower control map should have. Um, Mid has a lot of room to contest in, as well as the fans giving high ground and creating an interesting dynamic, which means there's a lot of contention um, for both the tower and for that overall map control. The defending team has a lot of high ground that they can work off. However, the attacking team also has different routes they can take to take countermeasures or against those high ground positions of power. The tower follows a pretty good path where the defending team can always reliably fight it and stop it from getting easy points. Um, it just checks off everything that you want out of tower control.
Indeed.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. Like you said, mid is pretty wide open. It's set up so that backlines can still they can still be effective in mid, but at the same time you also have flank routes. So the front lines, mid lines, they have options to be able to contest it. So I think it's a map where a lot of different play styles are viable, and there's good defense, like defensive positions that you can take. Like you can go top right, but at the same time they're not unbreakable. So I think it's just a really good balanced map for that. It prioritizes offense and defense at the same time, and it's yeah. I mean the best team wins. There's not really a whole lot of jank going on here. I really enjoy playing on this map
Mhm.
personally. I think it's one of the best maps in the game.
Yeah.
So taking a look at the voting, um, 83.7% of the voters said it was a viable map, 9.2% said it was borderline, and 7.1% said they didn't like playing on this map. So overall, I think this map is pretty consistent. Community agrees that this is a pretty good map to play on overall.
Yes.
Definitely.
And then next up, within Ancho-V, we have Rainmaker. What do you guys think about Rainmaker and Ancho-V?
So I definitely think Tower Control is the better mode, but Rainmaker still isn't bad on Anchovy. I do like the different paths you could take on Anchovy. Like I like how you could go like far left on the plat, or you could go on the fan. And again, there's not a lot of like BS on this map. It's hard to like cheese the Rainmaker on this map, which is another reason why it's pretty good. You know, compared to another map like I don't know Humpback or something. It's very easy to cheese the Rainmaker. Trust me, I would know. But yeah, so yeah, still very good map. I like Tower Control a little bit better in Anchovy, but Rainmaker, I'm still fine with it.
What about you, David?
Like I said, with tower control, it's very similar. The mid dynamic with the fans inspires a lot of creative play for both backlines and front lines. So that means neutral ground contention is really big, and oftentimes um, it takes a lot of skill to actually get a push off because it's not like you just grab and run it. You have to actually have control. So it's really balanced in that aspect. Most of the point mappings are pretty good. As Chase said, there's several different ways to take the Rainmaker, all of which have pretty decent point mappings. There's no real jankness with how the Rainmaker moves, and the distance from mid to the goal pedestal is smack dab average. So overall, it's pretty good.
This man said smack dab
Yeah, I would agree with
average.
that.
Yep.
Yeah, so the one thing I do want to bring up, I do agree with everything you guys are saying. I do think the paradise thing is, some people may find that a little bit weird because you can kind of camp the Rainmaker up there, top right or top left, on that spawn fan area. But for me personally, I think this is one of the most fun, like just in terms of how much fun I have playing on this map. This has got to be up there. It's very balanced. There's a lot of different routes you can take it. You can take it far right. You can go across the fan. You can go far left. It's pretty hard to sneak the Rainmaker and cheese it. The path is pretty good. It's not too short, not too long. Just really good
That
map
camping
in
that
general.
camping spot you were talking about in Paradise, I don't. In my opinion, that's not even like that good of a camping spot. Like, yeah, I'm not saying it's bad, but like there's definitely better Rainmaker camping spots like in other maps. Like it's not as safe as camping the Rainmaker in other maps, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it definitely doesn't break the map. I still think it's a
Yeah.
great map, but that's the one blemish I think that map has that makes it a little bit more iffy compared to
Yeah.
TC. But overall, I think this is a map that you should play often. Tournaments, LUTI, anything. I think this is a map that should see a lot of play. Well, we started off with a really good map. Let's move on to a more controversial map. Next, we have Blackbelly Skatepark. So, why don't we start it off with splat zones? What do you guys think?
David, why don't you go first on this one?
Okay, so I do have a lot to say about this one, so I'll give you time to think, Chase.
Okay, perfect.
So Blackbelly Splat Zones has it's one of the maps that has two different splat zones. And normally in this game, the reason why there's two different splat zones is because there's a high ground neutral point of contention. And the two splat zones basically make it so that if you have control of that high ground, you don't just instantly cap the zone. It just basically makes it more of a you have to control the whole area, you have to control mid, you have to really have not just control of this tiny little square, but of the game. The difference with Blackbelly Skatepark, there's a giant obstruction between the two um, the two splat zones. So that actually makes it so your team is oftentimes split up when trying to get that mid contention. That does result in a lot of unique and interesting gameplay, gives room for some cool strategies. The terrain on the map also gives way for some creative comps and different weapons to shine because of how bumpy it is. Um, but for most players' perspective, and for a lot of spectators' perspective, the fight in mid is really awkward. Doesn't really look like a team fight. The terrain is really funky. Um, and when a team loses that mid contestation, it's very hard for them to get back in. They get locked out very easily. And the reason being is because that tower in the middle, that neutral high ground becomes a position of power once you have it, and the other team can't really break in because they have no way to really get to that high ground.
Yeah.
So overall, it has a lot of good things, also has a lot of bad things. I'm more neutral on it.
So for me, if there's like a scale of me liking it to not liking it, I'm definitely leaning more towards like not liking it. But I'm a little biased because dualies aren't that good on this map, and those are like my main weapons. But at the same time, though, I have gained a little bit more respect for this map over the months that I've been playing. I've been using vanilla dapples on it, and that's been working pretty well for me. But yeah, I don't know. I think the tower thing in the middle is still dumb. I think the map would be way better if that wasn't there. But sloshers being kind of tri-slosher on that map is really frustrating. But even with all those issues I just listed, I still think that I don't know, with some practice, it's not that bad. Like I don't hate playing it anymore. But I don't know, Ladios. What do you think of that map?
Okay. I pretty much agree with everything David said. I mean, and the one thing I want to add though is, so because it's a two-zone map and because the two zones are very small, it's extremely easy to keep a zone neutral. Like, I mean, you literally just throw one bomb in the middle of the zone and it's neutral. And the problem with that is, um, as David talked about before, it's kind of hard to break back in sometimes because of how top mid is shaped. So not only is it really hard to get back into mid, but once you do, it's really hard to actually get control of the zone because the other team can just throw one bomb at it, and then you know, it's really hard to make comebacks on that map because if you get down by a whole bunch of points, then the team in the lead can kind of just sit back and throw bombs in the middle of the zone. It's really hard to make
Yeah.
comebacks compared to other zones maps, even other double zones maps. You don't really have that problem with, Piranha or Reef. It's kind of a problem unique to Blackbelly. So I personally don't. I I'm not going to complain if this map is played, but I do think it's one of the worst zones maps in the game. Um, let's look at the voting. 23.9 people say it's viable, 16.4 say it's borderline, and 59.7% say that it should not be
I'm not
played.
surprised.
And I tend to agree with those
Yeah,
numbers.
I'd agree with those numbers.
All right, let's move on to the much more well-respected mode on Blackbelly, which is Rainmaker.
Oh, yes.
What do you guys
Way
think?
better than spot zones. And you know why? Because that stupid tower thing isn't in the middle. And also just like, I don't know, certain areas of the map are kind of just, it's not just the middle portion that's gone. Like there's some other changes that are made to the map that just make it so much more fun to play compared to spot zones. And then again, I like the diversity on this map. I like how pushing both left and right is viable. Whereas left is a little safer in my opinion, but it yields points slower. Whereas going right is faster. Oh wait, no, wait. Yeah, wait. It is faster going on right, but also it's a bit
Yeah.
more dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah, you get more points
Sorry,
on
I
right.
confused myself for a second there. But yeah, so Blackbelly Rainmaker, yeah, I like it. I think it's one of the better Rainmaker maps.
Mhm. I agree with a lot of what Chase is saying. Without that giant tower in the middle, it is more of mid control, not like running around in circles just trying to shoot someone in the back. Um, the different paths you can take the Rainmaker are not only are there several paths, you can either take it through the half pipe or you can go on the right side. Um, there are different aspects of those paths, like you can take it out far right and up the closest ledge, or you can go into their maze and their T and that more choked area, which is worth more points immediately. However, it's a lot dangerous. There's also that block that you can use. So like there's a lot of unique terrain that isn't inherently unbalanced, that makes it so that you can have different comps, different play styles, different aggression, different specific movements. It gives way for players who have really good movement to make some really good plays. The only two issues with that, the different with the map in general, is the distance between your spawn and the goal is on the lower end, which kind of means that backline weapons can kind of just sit and spawn and shoot at the goal, like that pedestal, and actually be able to kill something. And going through the half pipe, getting to the edge of the half pipe is only worth 70 points. Getting up the hill that's right after the half pipe takes you to like 30. That point mapping on that slope is very strange due to the way that the game is calculating it because it's going both up and forwards. So other than those two flaws, it's a overall pretty good map.
Yeah, I think you guys made some good points. So yeah, the point mapping going half pipe is a little bit weird. I mean, to the point where sometimes I get, when Helix was still a thing, I used to get upset at Chase and Carrot for always taking it left because it's just the point mapping is just not as good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you guys brought up some good points. The top mid not being there really makes a difference. It feels like you can actually have a real team fight in mid. Like, mid is you're still blocking off. You're kind of sectioning off the map into two parts, but it still feels like you can actually set up a team fight and it doesn't obstruct the map in nearly the same way. I think if they took that top mid part down the same way in Rainmaker that they did in all the other modes, I think Blackbelly would be a great map on all modes because I don't know. I think that's really the one thing that screws that map over. But as far as voting, 72.5% agree that this is a viable map. 9.8% say borderline, and 17.8 say should not be played. I think that's a little
Wow, I'm
high.
surprised that the people who don't want it played was higher than borderline.
Same. I mean, I thought this was one of the most well-liked Rainmaker
Yeah.
maps in the game.
Maybe
Personally, I
maybe
think
the
this should
people who
be.
said no are just people who hate Rainmaker in general, so they're just voting no on all the Rainmaker maps.
It's that, and also I think Blackbelly in general has a bad rap.
Yeah.
So I think some people may still dislike it, even
Yeah, I
though
hope that map isn't in Splatoon
I.
3, bro.
All right. Well, we already did a video
Yeah,
about that.
I
So.
just had to say that again. I don't want it.
All right. But yeah, I think two very different modes. Rainmaker should be played. Zones should not. Next up, we have a map that is only being voted on in one mode, and that being Camp Triggerfish on Splat Zones. So I guess I can give my take on this first. So this map is very unique in that the two zones are separated by a body of water, and there's no way you can jump straight from one zone to the other. You have to go all the way around the right side or flank all the way around the left, which creates an interesting dynamic where teams usually have split up 2 and 2. You have two go to your zone or your zone side, and then you have two try to push to their zone. It's not like your traditional zones map where you kind of want to spread out like relatively close together. It's almost more like there's two separate parts of the map that you're equally close to, if that makes sense. It's kind of hard to explain it, but as opposed to having one central area, you have to control two different areas at the same
Yeah.
time, which can be difficult because if, say, the two that are on their side of the map, if they go down, it's really hard to get back to that side. It's pretty difficult unless you have like an explosion or bomb rush or something. It's really hard to get the enemy zone without also being on that side. Me personally, I enjoy the strategy um, that takes. Like, there's a lot of different things you can do with that map that you can't do with other zones maps, like double backline comps. Tent is really good here. Expo is really good here. So from a strategy standpoint, I think it's a really interesting map to play. I just don't think it's very balanced, if that makes sense. What do
Yeah,
you guys
so
think?
I was gonna say I agree with you that I think the strategy is like really cool on it. Yes, it's a hard map to play. It's probably one of the hardest flat zones maps, but at the same time, I find it really fun because you have to like you need to coordinate with the teammates. Like, okay, two of you go left, two of you go right, or maybe have one person go left, three go right. There's all these different strategies you could do. And I don't know. I just have a soft spot in my heart for Camp Triggerfish in general, so that I might be a little biased on that. But yeah, I don't know. I think this map is. I think it should be played in LUTI. To be honest, I know some people definitely feel differently about it, but I think having a map like this is good for LUTI. David?
Yeah, so Camp Triggerfish Zones is actually pretty similar to Blackbelly Skatepark if you took like Blackbelly and like hyped it up on like crack cocaine, because like that's really what it is. It's just a more extreme version of Blackbelly, and that the zones are split. Um, You have to basically, it creates a very interesting dynamic in how you split your team and how you want to fight. That takes a lot of coordination with not just your team, but with specific players, and leads the way to a lot of strategies you can deploy. However, it struggles from the same problem of if you lose control once, you're getting locked out because it's just really hard to get control of two separate areas on the map once you've lost all control you could possibly have.
Yeah, I would agree with that. As far as voting goes, 19.5 say it should be played, or not 8.5, 8.8% say borderline, 71.6 say
Doesn't
unviable.
surprise me,
And
but that's sad.
I can't say I'm surprised. I think that's probably about right. I mean, I I don't hate it, but I do agree with most of what David said. Again, fun map to play once in a while, but I do think it's one of the worst zones maps in the game. One of the worst 6 or 7 zones maps in the game. All right, moving on to perhaps the most outrageous map that we're going to be talking about, Goby Arena, which, in my opinion, should not have any viable mows on it, but that's a different discussion. Goby Arena tower control. How do you guys feel about this?
David, you could go first.
Right. So, you know how I said like Anchovy ticks off like all the good things that you want in a tower control map? Gobi Arena is kind of like Anchovy, but like flipped. It really ticks off every bad thing about a tower control map. There's way too much high ground around mid, which means mid is a death point. It becomes very stally. There isn't much control, area control, much there aren't really many team fights because it's kind of just poking each other from high ground, because there's too much high ground around mid and around where the tower is. And when one team actually breaks through and gets the tower past that first checkpoint and wins a team fight, they've basically won that game because when you view it, that's the only high ground. So once the attacking team has gotten the tower slightly moving, they've claimed all of your high ground, and you no longer have much of any. You have to recontest your high ground. It makes defense particularly impossible. You have to give up about 50 points because the tower is in a place that it's impossible for you to regain control because the pushing team has that power position. And it oftentimes ends up in 4 minutes of stalling and then a knockout, just all of a sudden. There's really nothing much else to be said. It's anchovy but flipped.
Yeah, so David gave a nice like statistical analysis, but I'm just gonna be real with you guys. This map is dick on the ground. All right, I don't know why this is being considered for LUTI. This is I don't who decided this. But yeah, no, this map is complete garbage. The worst part about it is what David hinted at already, but there's this part where the tower goes up like from the middle into their stands or the upper part, but there's no way to get up there, or there is a way, but it's like really awkward. You have to like jump to the left and jump across, and the only other way is to be on the tower. But if you get knocked off the tower, then you have to wait for it to come back down. It's so dumb. And then yeah, I don't know. That's not the only problem, by the way. Just the whole map is kind of bad. So yeah, I don't really have much more to say about that without cussing more. So Latios, why don't you go?
All right. Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with pretty much everything you guys said. This map kind of reminds me of Arowana in the sense that there's so much high ground, and the value of having that high ground is just too high. And if you don't have that high ground, you really don't have that many options. And like David said, it's just you're not gonna have that many team fights. You're just gonna have ranged weapons like the backlines. You're gonna have like a rapid just poking around. It's not a good map for having team fights in mid. It's so wide open and there's not much cover. Um, and then like Chase said about the stands, it's kind of the same issue that Skipper has on TC where there's a part of the map where once the tower goes up, but the place that it goes up to doesn't have an inkable path for you to climb up. So you got to take a really awkward path to get there, and it just makes it really hard to maneuver around the tower, which causes an issue where if for some reason it's overtime and the tower hasn't been pushed past that point yet, the team that's on defense with the lead can just wait until the tower gets right to that point and just throw specials on it, and it's game over. I mean, I know TC in general has that problem to some extent, but on Goby, there is literally nothing you can do because once you're forced off that tower, you're forced off the stands and you're not getting back up. So it's just all kinds of unbalanced. I don't know why they're even considering this map.
Yep. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Looking at the numbers, 16.2% say viable,
What?
15.5 say borderline, and 68.2 say it is unviable. And I really want to know what that
Wait, hold on, hold
16.2
on,
is
hold on.
smoking,
Give me,
but
hold on, hold on. Let me say something. What? Wait, well, what did you say the percentage was for people who said camp zones was viable?
19 and a half.
Okay. I was gonna say, okay, at least it's over, but still, that's way too close. There's no way that people think that is that close of camp zones being viable compared to Goby TC being viable. There's a huge difference there in terms of map quality.
Yeah, I
But
agree. Let's move on to something a little bit less
okay,
painful and go to Humpback Pumptrack.
good map.
First mode we're going to be talking about here is splat zones. I can go first here, I guess. So as a whole, Humpback is the terrain is very interesting. There's a lot of slopes in mid, lots of elevation, with the mid being the highest point on the map. I think it's a map that's very good for weapons that have good hitboxes like slushers, blasters, rollers to some extent. Not great for backlines on this mode specifically, um, which personally I don't mind a whole lot. I think it's good that I think we should have maps that where certain weapons shine and others don't. I don't have a problem with it. You got a flank route that's viable and lets you get into their spawn without being too oppressive. It's not game breaking. Um, yeah, I think it's overall a pretty good map. My only gripe with it really is just it's really easy to just sit back and spam specials. There's a reason why you see double arrow PG on this map sometimes. There's so much paint on your side of the map that you can use to get specials, and then it's just the zone is so easy to cap because you can just throw all your specials at it. The other thing that makes it easy to cap is there's that little lip, and I know David, you junior players always sit there and just paint over it and sit in that one spot, and there's not much you can really do about it because you just sit on that one little area underneath the wall in mid. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I think it's a good map. What do you guys think?
Yeah, so this map, I agree with you. I think it's pretty good. It is very special spammy. I personally go missile spam flings a roller on this map, and that works very well. Have a very high success rate on this map. But even with that though, that doesn't. It's not really a negative thing. I would say. I mean, I guess some people could think that's annoying, but that part aside, it's a very good map though. I like how there's not actually that much space from like spawn and getting to mid. So like, stealth jump isn't as important on this map. So I don't usually run it here. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's a pretty good map. It's one of the better zones maps in my opinion. David?
Mhm. So because of the way that the map is set up, it's kind of difficult to lock out. However, it is very, very possible to lock out. And that's always a really good dynamic when it comes to zones maps. As you said, the distance from your spawn to the zone isn't too far. Statistically, it really isn't. And basically means that when the team has control, they keep pushing up, but it's actually as much as they want to go up, it keeps getting harder and harder. So it takes skill to lock out, and then to get back in, you actually have to win a team fight. You can't just hold forward and feed on zone, um, and that creates a lot of controlling the entire map in order to control the splat zone. Um, the only issue is the geometry near the zone favors, a lot of hiding, a lot of special spam, which can be a little boring. Um, However, the way that the zone is and the way the map is shaped is truly the embodiment of splat zones of closer and closer to the central area. It's harder to maintain control, and the team that holds that control the most wins the game.
Yeah, I guess I never really thought about it like that. where specials can make it harder to lock out. I guess from that perspective, I could understand why that's a good thing. But yeah, I mean, overall, pretty good map, and the voters tend to agree with that. 72% say it's viable, 20.5 say borderline, and just 7.5 say it shouldn't be played. Now moving on to Rainmaker on Humpback. What do you guys think?
David, you go first on this one. I keep talking over you.
No, so perfectly fine. So on this map, you still have the dynamic of the geometry in mid is kind of weird, favor certain weapons, and kind of favor, some, hide and poke type of strategies. However, you do, in order to push the Rainmaker, need that total control, because the attacking team actually has less flank options than the defensive team. The defensive team can flank that pushing Rainmaker a lot easier. They don't have to go all the way around. They can just kind of drop in mid. So it encourages total control of the map. I think it's really interesting that fight on that right elbow, which is the normal way to push. However, there is still the top left route, which people are surprised on. Simply getting to that block pushes you close to 30, past 40, definitely past 40, and trying to get up that top left route, that route that's more considered a flank, is actually something that the defensive team needs to be aware of, because you can get a lot of points by simply making that jump and getting up there. So it does, again, with the whole turf thing, the whole concept of Splatoon, the main entertainment of the game, the main balance of the game, of total mid control.
So yeah, I agree with David there. What I will say about this map, while I do like it, it definitely has a bad case of Rainmaker syndrome. And what I mean by that is the main problem with Rainmaker, where your team gets wiped once and it's practically over. Just because on this map, the distance from the pedestal to mid where the Rainmaker starts isn't too big. And then if they're trying to push on on the left elbow, and then you guys just happen to get wiped, it's very hard to come back from that. They're most likely going to knock it out. So that's the only main issue I kind of have with it. But I still think it's a fine map. I mean, that's just part of Rainmaker. Like, it's not the only map that has that. I mean, yes, it is worse than usual on this map, but it's not. I don't mind that. That's just part of Rainmaker. And yeah, going what is it? The left. So the left route going on that block that David was talking about, that way is a little underrated in my opinion, because as David said, it yields some points pretty fast. But I think people are just scared to go for it because it's it's kind of right under their spawn. But yeah, you could definitely catch people off guard with that and just kind of cheese the Rainmaker while people are in mid, and it gets some points. So yeah, I do like that map though. How about you, Ladios?
Yeah, so I got a few things to add on to that. Agree with you guys for the most part. Like David said, when you're defending, you can flank through mid, and which is usually what I do actually. So it's a little risky because if the rest of your team goes down, then it's game over. But it's true that you have some good flank routes on defense, which you can't really say about every map. You don't really think about flanking on defense too often, but on this map, if the other team doesn't respect your flank, you can easily pincer them, get behind them, trap them on your own elbow, and it's a really unique way to win fights and stop pushes. Um, and also, like Chase said, it's kind of easy to knock out here because of how easy it is for. It's just a short path, really. But one thing I will say is, if you don't get that wipe, the fight that's on that window plat area, it's it's kind of hard to wipe the other team. Like you can't just I don't know how to explain it, but you can't just brute force your way through it. You gotta actually take the time to gain control of it. You might have to use some specials. Um, and if the other team doesn't wipe you, then it's a pretty difficult and interesting fight over there. So while I do think it's pretty easy to get wiped there and lose the game, it's also a really challenging team fight there to get that wipe in the first place. So I don't personally mind that knockout factor as much. I think there's other maps that have it worse, like Inkblot Rainmaker, but yeah, overall I think it's a pretty good map. I don't have any gripes with it personally. Now for voting, just like zones, 72% say it is viable, 18.8 say borderline, and 9.2 say it shouldn't be played. I think those numbers sound about right.
Yep, I agree.
Now moving on to Humpback Clamblets. I can start off with this one. So this one is kind of similar to the other modes in terms of layout. There's not a whole lot of difference. The one thing that I think is interesting about this map is how the flank route it goes right up to the objective. So if you go on that flank, you can set up jumps, you can flank all the way around the back line. So I just think that's a good dynamic to have on Clamblets, because some Clamblets maps like this one are kind of difficult to brute force your way through. It's kind of similar to Reef, where it's really hard to just brute force your way to it. So having that flank route that's behind that area, it opens up a lot of strategy for especially the Slayers to get behind them, and it prevents you from just having to rely on stuff like ball or brute force specials to get in. So I do like that. Other than that, the layout is pretty similar to the other modes. I don't like it. The one thing I don't like about it is I feel like the goal is pretty close to
Yeah,
mid,
that's what I was
which
gonna.
in general
It's a bit easy to
isn't.
score on this map.
Third shortest.
Yeah, it's third shortest. Okay, yeah. So while it is hard to gain control of that area in mid, it's also extremely easy to score if you do have control of that area. So it's and for that reason, it's in my experience is one of the easiest map modes on clams where you can keep the basket open for a long period of time, because there's a lot of clam spawns. There's a clam spawn in the cubby. There's a bunch of clam spawns in trench. It's pretty easy to keep the map, or not the map, keep the basket open, because the clams spawn fairly close to basket, and the distance between the spawns and basket really isn't that big. So that's my only real gripe with it. I think it's kind of easy to set up pushes sometimes, and it's really hard to get end. It's really hard for the defending team to end pushes. The Rainmaker flank route that you guys talked about before is also present here. So if you get someone up there or you get someone on the right flank, it can be kind of difficult to get rid of all the defenders. So overall, I don't hate it. I think it's a decent clams map, but I do think it has some weaknesses that make it less desirable than some other clams maps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as I said, just now that it's the third shortest distance from what you'd consider mid to the basket. That means that somebody just kind of cheeses one in. You can get a lot of clams in. You can. There's a very extreme high ground there that actually might support the attacking team rather than the defending team, which is not normal, or not usual for this game. And the reason being is you can kind of hide under a ledge where you can't be shot and throw some clams straight up. However, map still is good at the. You have to control all of mid, because the whole map is important. Interesting geometry with a lot of different dynamics for fighting, as well as two flank options. Do make it so that team fights are very interesting on this map. Just kind of wish that you didn't, just swim a little bit to go from mid to throwing clams in.
Yeah, I mean, you guys summed it up pretty well. I personally don't really have anything to add on to that other than in terms of how I personally feel about this map. I think it's mediocre. Like, it's there. It's not my least favorite map, but it's definitely not my favorite either. So I am expecting the voting to be relatively even on both sides. So Ladios, tell us what it is.
All right, so it may be a little higher than you would
Oh.
expect. Actually, 61.6 say it's viable, 14.1 borderline, and 24.3 say it's unviable. So a little bit skewed towards the viable side of things, actually, which I personally don't have a problem with.
Yeah, you know
But
what? That's fine. That's not like horribly atrocious. I'm fine with that.
it's a map that's I wouldn't mind if it wasn't there, and I don't mind that it is there.
Yeah.
So it's whatever. Next, we have one of the best maps in the game, which is Inkblot Art Academy. Starting off with Splat Zones. What do you guys think about this one?
Spot zones on Inkblot is quite good. I do have a few gripes with it though. The zone is very hard to paint on this map. So there are definitely times where you are trying to cap the zone, but you just can't because of how freaking big it is. The whole block structure in the middle is kind of the reason for that. But at the same time, I think that is a necessary part of the map. Like if that wasn't there and it was just a big fat zone, that would be kind of weird. So I don't know. I don't even know what I'm trying to say here, but Uh, I get it's like bittersweet for me. But other than that, I think it's a pretty good map. My favorite part about that map actually is when you're on their plat. Latias, I see you do this a lot, but you know how there's that block that you could paint behind and jump and like shark on the wall. That's my favorite part of the map. That can lead to so many cool like strategies and stuff. But yeah, no, no, there's no special or sub that's super broken here. I do think Fizzy Bomb is quite good here because if you have like one or two Fizzy Bombs and you're running double Fizzy Bombs, you can just spam that at their plat and they really can't do anything. So yeah, I do think Fizzy Bomb is good here. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's like definitely a S tier map, like definitely up there.
So Inkblot Art Academy is Blackbelly Skatepark done correctly. And I'll tell you why. So, as Chase said, the zone is really big and there's a large area to control. However, as I talked about before in zones maps, that's actually not that bad of a thing because you should be encouraged to not just paint a square, but to hold the entire midsection. And Inkbot does that. The zone is it is kind of goofy to look at how big it is, how wide it is. However, the fact that the tower in the middle kind of splits and causes there to be a reasonable distance between your team means that there actually has to be a lot of strategy for how we split up. The same way you're talking about Blackbelly and Camp, Triggerfish, that you kind of have to split up. So that does make really cool dynamics, really cool team fights. And the main difference is that top midsection in Blackbelly Skatepark, that neutral top mid, that tower, there is no defending team high ground in order to push you off. Once you have that tower in Blackbelly, you've got it. There's no other high ground to contest you. However, on Inkblot, there are several different high grounds to contest you. There is the grading coming right off your spawn on that area that's normally the goal for like other modes. There is the shell. There, depending on the range of your weapon, if it's like an Ely or something, you can even stand on the top right bats area, which means there's an actual way to contest that high ground. You don't just get locked out because like, oh, they wiped us once. They have all the high ground in the game. They win. Um, I think this is just Blackbelly done right.
Okay, yeah, I would agree with that. Um, as far as the top mid thing goes, I definitely agree with that. For me personally, I usually like to inkjet that top mid. It's pretty accessible, and for the most part, it's pretty easy for me to get backlines off of there just by popping that jet, and there's not much they can really do about it. At best, they just have to drop and retreat. So I definitely think it's more balanced in the sense that it's top mid is not as like it's a powerful position to have, but it's also pretty it's fair. Like the defending team actually has opportunities to get you off that position. And I think it's like you guys said, the zone is it's pretty big and it's but that has an advantage in that it's hard to just throw one special at it and it's capped for free. And like David said, it's it's all about controlling the entire area in mid and not just the zone, which me personally, that's the one thing that I like the most about zones maps. That's the one thing that when I say, oh, that map, you got to control more than just mid. Those are the maps that I like because zones for me, when you just can just sit there and hold paint over a square, like it's just not that enjoyable. But when you actually have to control these different choke points and hold other areas outside the zone, it makes team fights a lot more interesting, makes the game a lot more entertaining to watch, and it's just more fun to play, honestly. So overall, I think this is one of the best maps overall in the game. And the voting would support that. 88.4% say viable map, 7.8 say borderline, and just 3.8 say it shouldn't be played. Moving on to TC, which I think is a similar story. It's one of the most played maps in the game. The layout is a little different from zones. Instead of having one top mid section, you have two smaller stack areas on the left and the right. And as far as the tower path, I think it's okay. I mean, I think the tower path is a little weird because you're going left and then right, but it's not really it's not really problematic. On defense, there are several places where you can defend safely on your booth area, on your snipe. But at the same time, there's some good ways for the defense to break those positions. You can flank across the steps. You can get their top left. It's fully accessible via the wall. So I just think it's a really balanced map for both the defense and the offense. There's good ways you can defend, but there's also good ways that you can break out of that defense. So overall, I think it's just a really balanced map that's entertaining to play, fun to
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I completely agree. Actually, I actually like this map a little bit more than Spot Zones on Inkblot. My favorite part about it is that they add that little step on the right side of their plat where you could get into their plat from mid. I really like that feature. I mean, I understand why it's not in the other modes because that would be a little broken, but I do like that it's there for TC. And then, yeah, I don't know. I like that you're able to go up the left side and get into like their upper area. I don't know what is it called, the roof or something. I don't know what the official term for that is. Yeah, but you know the part under their spawn where they could just like shoot down at you. I like that you can actually get up there in TC. I think that's a good touch. But yeah, no, definitely one of my favorite maps.
Just like zones, it has the dynamic of like splitting the map of like there's fights on left, there's fights on right. However, you can, if you're fast enough, you can cross over and get to each other. Which again makes for really good team fights, really interesting dynamics. Uh, you know, you can get creative with your comps on this type of map. And the same thing for pushing, going up on the top left, going on the right side. Defending team has power positions of high ground. Attacking team has suitable methods to get the team off these power positions. Overall, just good team fights.
Yeah, I would agree. And the voting also supports that. 87.8 say it's viable. 10.1% say it's borderline. And I think this is the lowest number of votes against. Only 2% say it shouldn't be played,
Yeah,
which
I'm telling you, it's a fantastic map.
I agree. Moving on to the last mode on Inkblot, which is Clamblitz. What do you guys think about this one?
I definitely think this is of the three modes. This is probably the worst one. But even with saying that, it's not bad. Like Inkblot is just an all around amazing map. But yeah, I think it is its weakest. Okay, well, Rainmaker isn't even being considered. I think Rainmaker is its weakest mode. But of the modes being considered here, Rainmaker isn't being considered, right? Okay, yeah.
No.
So I think of the three modes, Clamblitz is the worst one. But yeah, my only gripe with this map is it has a similar problem with Humpback, where then again, not as bad as Humpback, but I do find that it's a little easy to kind of just score here because even though you have to go up the step to get to their basket, it doesn't take long to do that. Oh, and also I hate how you can throw in clams from the step. You don't even have to get in. You don't even have to get under the basket. Regular clams, I mean, not the power clam. You do have to get under the basket, but for regular clams, I think that is kind of dumb that you could do that. But yeah, I don't know. It's again still not bad. I'm not saying I hate it, but it's the weakest of the three in my opinion.
So I do think this is actually not a viable map because
Ooh.
feels it's way too easy to get control of the other team's plat. Where it's like things like tower control and spot zones, it's a little more difficult to really get that control. Main reason being that there are several ways to get up there, and once you're up there for good, and you're consistently scoring. So if you do manage to break in and get the other team's plat, there are when you look at the actual code for how clams spawn, there's basically emitters that will pump out clams, and so a normal emitter will just pump out 4 clams in that area. I'm sure you've seen the 4 cluster clams, um, and there are 3 of those on each team's plat, which means depending on how lucky you get on your push, that could just be 12 free clams because you've gotten position to freely claim those. You don't even have to move. You just hold A under basket, you're throwing them in. As Jay said, you can score from the steps. Um, Most times I play this map, it feels like you just use one special, get control of plat, and you've got it for the rest of the game because you're just consistently scoring. The other team almost has to feed and suicide on you in hopes of getting you to stop because this is just the easiest Clamblitz map to KO on. definitely looking at how the way the clams spawn and the shape of the map, I don't think it's viable at all.
So I wouldn't call it unviable. I do think it's worse than the other two modes, but a couple things I want to go over. So there's basically three ways that you can get onto the enemy side of the map when you're pushing. You can take the top left wall, you can go up the left wall on plat, and you can go across the steps. So the wall that's on top left, it doesn't really help a whole lot, I don't think. And then you got the two other ways, the wall and the steps. And the reason why I don't really see this as a problem is it's pretty easy to just pre-fire both of those routes. You can't just climb up for free and get onto plat without getting contested because you can just hold fire across either of those points. And unless they have help or a special or something, they really can't get across that. So I do think it is pretty easy to KO once you get up there. The clam clusters under the goal make it pretty easy to keep pushes going. And the step throw that you guys talked about before also contributes to making it easy to keep pushes going. Just get some clams from mid, and then you don't even have to go all the way to the basket. You can keep it in from steps. I personally think the step thing is much bigger of a problem than how easy it is to get on plat. I don't think it's that easy to get on plat. Like I said, you can kind of just pre-fire it. Um, but yeah, I think the step thing is a big problem. It's way too easy to keep pushes going. As for me personally, I think it should still be played, but it's definitely not as good as the other two modes. It's got some flaws, but I wouldn't say it's unviable. I don't have a problem with it personally, but as far as the voting, it does have a lower percentage than both of the other two modes for this map. 71.5% say it should be played, 18.8 say borderline, and 9.7 say it shouldn't be played at all. Moving on to another well-regarded map, MakoMart. Splat Zones is the first one we'll go over. So what do you guys think?
9.5 out of 10. I think this is definitely one of the best maps in the game. Maybe not as good as Inkblot. Like Inkblot TC still I think is my favorite map mode, but no, MakoMart zones is quite good. I mentioned this in my other video, but I do like the uniqueness of this map in that it's a plus for the zone. Like it's not a square, it's a plus. I think that's really cool. I do get annoyed sometimes on this map just because of the weapons I use kind of get destroyed by like sloshers on the the stacks on left and right. But again, that's a personal gripe. That's my problem. But yeah, no, very good map. It's not special spammy or anything. It's not like Humpback where you can just throw a booyah at the zone and it immediately caps it. So that's another good thing about it. But yeah, I definitely like this map.
Takes a it takes a lot of skill in order to lock out. The defending team and the pushing team both have to. It's definitely a team fight on how you're going to lock out. It's not really lopsided or one-sided. It's balanced in the way that it's increasingly harder for a team to lock out because of the high ground. However, it is still possible. The distance from your spawn to the splat zone is a little short. Backliners don't have to move too much before they can hit the zone. However, the geometry around the zone, as Chase was talking about the shape of the zone, but there's just the geometry in general is actually really interesting. It means that like the players with the better movement will be the ones successful, not just straight up aim. And that's just another dynamic that can show off skill for players, kind of make it for interesting weapon choices. I think the only real issue is that giant pillow in the middle is kind of strange. I don't really know why it's there. I don't really know what its purpose is. Why is there a pillow in the middle of the zone? I'll never know. Other than that, it checks off everything you want out of a splat zone.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the one thing I like about this map the most is it just feels like a lot of different weapons are viable here. Backlines can do just fine here. They've got a few different positions they can hold. Most Slayer weapons and front lines are pretty good here. Tri-Slosher is really good. I think Inkjet's really strong. I think some midline weapons may struggle a little bit here just because of how cramped the map is. But you know what? I think we need more of that because I'm sick of getting screwed by Nautilus and CDS. I don't know about you guys, but I if we don't ever see those weapons again, I wouldn't mind. So I'm
Same.
not gonna hold a gripe because what was that?
I said same. Oh
Oh, okay. You
my
cut out,
bad.
my bad. But yeah, it's the weapons that are good on this map are weapons that make it really fun to watch and enjoyable in my opinion. Backlines are good, front lines are good. It's just fast-paced gameplay with, and like David said, it's the distance from spawn to zone isn't too great, so it's a very back and forth map. It's pretty easy for teams to make a good defense and get back in. But at the same time, it's kind of the same as Humpback in terms of how you can defend, or like when you're in control, how you can retain control. In that top left, you don't. It's really hard to get up top left. You kind of just have to like wait over there and try to contest them from below. But there's a flank route that's good at distracting the other team, creating a pincer, but it's also not doesn't break the game. So again, good flank routes. Most weapons are viable here. Shape of the Zone is unique, and yeah, I think this is one of the best maps in the game. And the voting definitely supports that as well. Inkblot TC was the lowest downvoted map. This is the map that has the most
Ah,
upvotes with 92.5% saying that this map is viable. 5.3 voted borderline, and 2.2 said it should not be played.
good. How it
Moving on to
should be.
TC. Exactly. Tower control on this map. What
All
are we
right, I have
thinking?
some differing opinions on this one. I don't think this map is, or this mode is as good as spot zones. I think it is. I want to say significantly, but that might be the wrong word. But it is definitely worse than spot zones. Just because of the way the tower moves, it can be kind of weird because it moves left into like right under where they drop from spawn. So that can definitely be frustrating at some points. I think in terms of specials, I think Ink Storm is actually really strong here. Just because when you're pushing, you could throw that Ink Storm on the left side into their spawn, so it kind of blocks them out from getting there. So it could kind of guarantee that checkpoint. I also think Toxic Mist is good here. Again, I'm biased because I use blue dapples on this map, but yeah. So I definitely think that it is worse than Spot Zones, but it's not bad though. I would be okay with this map being in LUTI.
So if you look at like the tower control maps that we've looked at just now that we said are viable, Anchovy and Inkblot, those tower control maps are shaped extremely similar. There's the high ground in mid. There's that team fight in mid. The tower takes a similar path. The enemy team's high ground is built pretty similar. Um, they both kind of check off the same things that make them a good tower control map. And MakoMart seems very similar to those, just slightly different, right? So you still have those stacks in mid, but they're a little different shaped. You still have that like kind of mid fight, but it's a little more awkward because of the geometry. You still have the high ground right above the tower where it moves, but it's a lot closer to their spawn because the spawn is on the left, not the right. Um, so, and then the way the tower moves is pretty similar, but it's still like kind of weird how the geometry around it is and the different peaks that high ground get. Um, and then lastly, there's that weird checkpoint, like at the end of the map, like 10 points away from knocking out. So it does hit off all those good points, just slightly worse than Inkblot and Anchovy that we've been, saying like really good balance maps.
Yeah, I think that's fair. My thing that the one gripe I have with this that makes me think it's worse than zones or some other TC maps is just that it's kind of hard to get control of top left when you're pushing. The defense can kind of just sit up there, and there's some ways you can push through there. You can throw a bomb rush up there, pop a jet or whatever, but other than that, or just climbing on the tower to get up there, it can be difficult to defend from there. That being said, I don't think it's too big of a problem. The flank route is pretty good at diverting some attention away from that. And once you do get past that top left area and get it down to their freezer area, I think it's a lot easier for the pushing team to make a really strong push, but it's not so easy that you're going to see knockouts all the time. this is one of the maps where it feels like if the two teams are even just relatively close in skill, you're not going to see a knockout. But if one team is just heavily outplaying the other, it's still easy enough to get a KO. So I don't know. I don't have any problem with it. I think it's pretty balanced. Voting is lower than spot zones. 85.9% say it should be played. 8.7 say borderline. 5.4 say shouldn't be played. And I think that's fair. Moving on to Rainmaker on Mako, I can go ahead and start with this one. So this one I think is the most iffy mode on this map. There's two different ways you can push. You can go top left across the block, or you can go straight ahead on the right side after dropping below the opponent's stacks, which I like. I think both routes are viable in different situations. Top left is good if you want a longer, drawn out push where you need to set up, contest the enemy strongholds, and set up a longer push. And right side, on the other hand, is a little bit better if you get that
Yeah.
wipe or you have a big advantage and you can just kind of swim straight for the
Mhm.
goal. So I like that
Yeah.
dynamic. The one thing I don't like about it is just I feel like it's really easy to shark. It's really easy to cheese the Rainmaker, and I've done it a few times on this map mode in particular. It's just I don't know. It just feels like there's some really strong defensive positions that are kind of hard to get opponents out of, and also the rail makes it so that even if you're pushing top right, you have like an immediate pathway towards the top right, and then you can kind of just contest the Rainmaker as soon as they get up there. Toxic Mist also makes that top right push useless.
Yeah.
So overall, I think it's definitely the worst mode on this map, but I actually still enjoy it. I think it should be played, although it's not as strong as some of the other maps that are on this map or other modes in general, other Rainmaker maps. What
Yeah,
do you guys
Alex, you
think?
kind of said everything I wanted to say. Basically, I completely agree with you. I think the dynamic of having one route that's definitely the safer one that you take most of the time. But if you wipe them, you have like a really fast, dangerous route. I think that's a really cool, like dynamic. But I do also agree with you on like the sharking thing. I have definitely this might be the map I've cheesed Rainmaker the most on, and you have been there for most of it. It is very easy
Yeah.
to do that here, like super super easy. Even with like I've done it against like decent teams, not like top level teams, but like teams around our level. I've done it against, so it is kind of funny in that regard. Toxic Mist is quite good here, similar to like Sturgeon Rainmaker, because there's a block that you could just throw it on, and it completely shuts down that route for a good amount of time. Um, yeah, no, I think, but in terms of like the distance from mid to the pedestal, I actually think it's pretty good. Like if you push left, it's fine. It's not easy to get wiped here, which I like about it compared to like Humpback. I think it's easy to get wiped on Humpback, but on this map it's a bit harder. So I think that's a good trait to this map. So yeah, I like it, but it's my second favorite mode on this map. I like Zones the best. I like Rainmaker second, and I like Tower Control third. David, how about you?
I'm a lot more neutral on this map. If there was one word to describe it that I think describes it better than like any other map, would just be awkward. Feels really awkward. Different ways to push are kind of unique and cool, but like they always feel really awkward. It feels really slow to take that top left path. Feels like you can get a wipe and the other team will just respawn and be in position already. Um, it is good at the if there's one thing it's good at, it's the if you do get wiped, you don't just instantly lose. You get a chance to actually fight back. However, the distance from the goal to the mid area where the Rainmaker needs to be popped is longer than the distance from spawn to mid. The Rainmaker pedestal is behind, um, or is a farther distance away than the spawn. It's behind the spawn, essentially. You spawn to the left of the Rainmaker, and you like drop on it. It's very awkward. It's weird. There's no other real Rainmaker maps that are made like this. So I guess it's just awkward. It's just strange. It's good at the yeah. You don't insta lose and you get wiped. But other than that, like I don't know. It's kind of weird for me. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. The voting does support your, your mixed feelings about the map. 67.5% say it should be played. 13.2 are iffy about it, and 19.3 say it shouldn't be played. The lowest rated mode on this map. Now let's move into the last mode for this map, which is Clam Blitz. All 4 modes on this map are being voted on, and Clam Blitz is probably the other mode besides Rainmaker that is a little bit more controversial. What do you guys think?
Okay, so let me correct myself here. So I didn't realize Clamblitz was being voted on. So let me tell you my 4 modes in order, okay? Splat Zones is 1, Rainmaker is 2, Clamblitz is 3, and Tower Control is 4. I think Clamblitz is better than Tower Control slightly, but when saying that, I definitely have some gripes with this map, though. It has the Humpback Clamblitz syndrome, where it is very easy to score because the basket is so close to mid. But at the same time, I do like how you're able to like kind of jump on the top left and like get under the basket. I think that's a cool feature to this map. It does remind me of Humpback in a lot of ways, actually, just in terms of ways you could like get under the basket and stuff. It actually I never thought about that, but it is quite similar to Humpback. But yeah, it's also very easy to like get pushed out on this map. I feel like very easy to lose mid. Not sure if you guys will agree with that, but that's how I feel. But yeah, it's not a bad map. No mode on MakoMart is bad, so I'm fine with any of these maps being in.
All right, the distance from mid, quote unquote, to the spawn basket is actually the clam basket, excuse me, is so short that it almost feels like there is no mid. There's your stack, and then there's their stack, and it's just kind of a line split there. As you said, it feels really easy to lose that mid control. I've had way too many competitive games just devolve into running it back and forth. Just they run in straight ahead and score because they can, throw in as many as they can. We kill them, do the same thing, just kind of run it back and forth. Um, I do agree that I think it's cool how much you can move around the basket. You can flank around the right side and get fully behind it. You can go on the top left. The stacks are always unique fighting areas, so those are pretty cool. But I don't know. It's another map that on this mode feels really awkward because there's really no distance in mid. It's just kind of your side and their side. There's no mid.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with Chase that it's kind of got some humpback qualities to it. You can go top left, top right, and kind of hold those areas for clams, to score clams and pressure the other team, and also the short distance from mid to goal. Um, I think it's viable, but I do think that the distance between mid to goal can cause some really weird back and forths. Like, I think it just seems like on this map, if you stop the other team's push, you can just pick up the pity and just run straight for their basket and get a free push immediately. I don't know, I just feel like it's too easy to counter push here, personally. But yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you guys talked about. So as far as voting goes, this is the third highest rated mode on this map. 76.5% say it should be played, 13.4% say borderline, and 10.1% say it is unviable. Now let's move on to a map that's very, very up and down on what people think about it. It seems like everyone I talk to has got a different opinion on this map, and that is Manta Maria. We'll start off with Splat Zones. How do you guys feel?
David, you can go first on this one. Oh wait, he's muted. Latios, you go first.
So this map, I feel like it's the one thing that I don't like about this map is I feel like the pillar that separates the two zones is really awkward. Like you can't just go straight from one zone to the other. You got to swim around this big pole, and I feel like that it makes it really easy to shark in mid. And because of how backlines are also really strong here, you kind of sometimes have to shark there because there's not that many other places where you can get cover from the backline. So it kind of devolves into like battles in mid where it's like which front line is going to try to right side peek 1st. And I don't know. I don't like the team fights all that much on this map. And my other big gripe with this one is backlines, especially E-liter, which by the way is very good on this map. At least I think so. if you get your E-leader up there on bunker or mast, it is really hard to get them off of there. So if you have two teams with backlines, usually I think the team that gets the zone first is going to win the game. It's pretty hard to break back in when the other team's got an E-leader like that. There's some cover, but there's not a whole lot. All you really have to do is just send two in street, have your leader on mast, and then one just watching the left side. And it's just the leader can hit top left. There's not much cover up there. Like, you can hide from the leader up there, but there's not that much room. And with the pressure caused by the leader and the ability for you to just shark the right side, it's really hard to break back in my opinion. So this is, for me, I don't enjoy this map all that much personally. I don't think it's terrible, but I wouldn't like to see it in this map list personally. What do you guys think?
So yeah, I want to kind of go off what you were saying about the backline. I mean, I might be wrong about this, but from my experience, I feel like this is like the best map for backlines, maybe, because whenever I'm facing like an E-leader or a Hydra on this map, I just get annihilated. It's it's crazy. But again, that might just be me sucking and like how I'm approaching the map. But I genuinely do feel that way. But even with saying that though, I actually don't mind this map, which I know I'm contradicting myself, but I actually don't mind this map. I'm not sure why. I kind of just like the whole like bunker masks, kind of scenario going on. But then there's also below mid. I feel like it provides some nice strategy on like where you could go and what weapons you're trying to target and stuff. But yeah, it's average for me. Like I don't dislike it, but I don't particularly like it either. I'm so on it. So if it is in the map list, that's fine. If it's not, that is also fine.
Yeah, I suspect there's gonna be like the votes are gonna be split pretty evenly, either that or most people are gonna be neutral because it has a lot of really good pros, but it also has a lot of cons. I guess we can start with the cons that it is one of the more longer distances from your spawn to your zone. When you think about it, it takes a while to get back there if you don't have beacons or anything. And let alone from your spawn to the far side zone, the one that's closer to theirs. So I feel like there's a lot of. It feels like locking out doesn't take too much skill. You just kind of shark, as you were saying, just shark the drops, and that's really it. And other teams just kind of spams bombs until they can get a pick and move back in because it's pretty far away to get to the zone from your drops. The mid fight is pretty interesting though. The dynamic of the bunker and the mast, that high ground, as well as the zones being low ground. It always makes for an interesting and unique team fight. Especially because the high ground, most of the times you don't want to be on uninkable surfaces. However, you do want to be on a high ground. So that power position having a compromise, um, that's why it supports backline weapons a lot. Backlines don't really mind having to be on those grates too much. Things like Hydra just runs across them. It does provide a lot of creativity when it comes to comps and how you're going to push your team fight. It just hard to break back in, as you guys are saying, and that pole being in the middle is kind of awkward.
Yeah, I guess I never really thought about the greats, but that does make for an interesting dynamic in mid. I just think the one thing that I don't like about it is if you got two backlines, you're not really going to see the backlines interact with each other if they both go bunker because that big pole is in the
Yeah.
way. But if you have a weapon that's not a backline try to go across those grates, then like so for me usually, like I said before, I usually end up under mid because it gives me cover from the backline and it's just kind of like a game of who's gonna peek first. But if someone goes across that mast, then it's kind of just a free kill for me. I don't know. It's really awkward the fight in mid, at least for me. But as far as the voting goes, as David was saying, it is actually very split. Like I think this map has the highest number of borderline votes of anyone we've talked about, maybe of any map in the list. Yeah, it's got the highest number of borderline votes of any map that's being voted on with 48.1. It's actually slightly skewed towards being viable with 33.9 saying they want to play it. 18% say they don't. So it's a little higher than I expected it to be personally, but I could just be a little biased. I don't know. I don't like that map too much, but let's move on to TC. I can start this one off. I enjoy this one a lot more than Splat Zones. It's really interesting when you're pushing. There's a couple different choke points that you got to control, but I feel like I don't know, I just feel like the way that you lay out your team and control those choke points is really interesting. Top left is a very important position on TC, even though the tower doesn't really go that way. It's still really important to control because holding that top left area gives you a really good place to defend the first checkpoint and even into street a little bit. So you have to control top left. And then that enemy elbow area can kind of, that's the one thing I don't like about this map is it just feels really hard to break out of elbow sometimes because you can kind of just sit in elbow when you're on defense, and the only way the other team can get you out is by using specials or flanking all the way around the left side, which it's not super difficult, but it's also a little bit awkward to do. And the other gripe I have with this map is once the tower gets past the street, once you get below that drop, it's kind of awkward. Like you can kind of just sit and elbow and just shoot down at them, and they're not really gonna KO. I don't know. Like I just feel like it's almost impossible to KO here sometimes, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just I don't know. I feel like it rewards the defending team a little bit too much in some situations, but as far as the layout goes, I would say it's pretty balanced. It's just kind of difficult to KO or get big pushes, which again, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't know. I just think it's a little bit there's some positions that the defense has a big advantage, namely the elbow.
Yeah, I was gonna say elbow is a little like overpowered on this particular mode, in my opinion. But I even with saying that, roller, just the roller weapon class is like really good on this map. Because, for example, Fling's Eye, I was go Fling's Eye here. You could kind of just flick over the elbow, and if anyone is sharking there, it kills them. So that's like the one check to the elbow being overpowered, I guess. But besides that, though, I think this map is pretty fine. I do agree with Latios. It is hard to knock out. It happens pretty rarely. But I do like how you're able to actually go top left on this map, like compared to zones where you can't. I like how you could actually swim up on the block and go that way and kind of cover that ground. So yeah, I'm fine with this map.
I feel like both teams always get stuck in that street. They kind of get it to 50 and then they can't really push anymore. Yeah, that checkpoint at that elbow, it's really easy. And even before and after, the enemy team always has high ground on all three sides when you're pushing. And it just seems really easy to just dive the tower when it's close to you because it gets really close to your ledge. You can just peek over it and hit it. So it's a little boring to watch actually because it just kind of results in two teams getting stuck at the same checkpoint, not being able to move forward. Other than that, I mean, I guess there's nothing inherently wrong with it. I guess the counterpoint is when the tower is moving from the left to the right, it's actually kind of hard for the defending team to rotate with it and to actually catch up. But like, I don't know, I never really gets that part of the map because you just kind of dive on it and kill them. So I don't know, I'm not a fan.
Yeah, like for me personally, the only way that I've found success doing that is just by going top left, and teams that I've played on, um, I can help them get past that area by popping jet on that elbow. It helps a lot, but you're right that in general there's just not that many ways to go up there. There's a reason why every single time I play this map I go top left because if you don't get that top left and have the option to flank or get a special over that elbow, it's really hard to get past that. So I totally agree with what you guys were saying. The map does have more favorable reviews than Splat Zones. 57.1 say they should play it, 30.3 borderline, and 12.6 say it shouldn't be played. Now, let's move on to a map that is the complete opposite of Manta TC, which is Manta Rainmaker. You go from a map that is very difficult to knock out to a map that is extremely easy to knock out. once you get past the street, the pushing route is basically the exact same as TC. The difference is once you get below that drop, it's a very short distance to goal because you can swim it. The defense can't really sit on high ground because it's just Rainmaker is it's a lot harder for you to just sit in one spot on defense like that. So it's just very easy to KO. Once you get it dropped below the street, you're kind of just home free from there unless the other team's got someone on mass or whatever. Other than that, it's pretty similar to TC in the way that you push and the choke points that you want to cover. So I I still like this map. I like TC as well, but I think it's a little bit more unbalanced just because it's so easy to knock out sometimes. You can also kind of cheese it across the cut, which is a little bit weird, but yeah, I think it's overall it's a decent map. Not as good as TC, but it's viable, I would say. What about you, David?
When I was talking about tower control, how like there's that issue of if you're caught on one side, it's really hard to rotate to the other side, and that the pushing team, for example, the Rainmaker carrier took it from mid and ran down right, and you were stuck on the left. It's gonna be hard for you to get back around before they score a lot of points. And particularly, what you'll see is you'll take a team that just grabs the Rainmaker, runs it over cut, and if they get past you, they're home free. Um, so it just seems like a really snowbally map. And then let's just say you do stop the Rainmaker. The attacking team now has the high ground. Um, and unless you really have like a weapon that can abuse the mast and stay up there, and hold its own, like a charger or a hydra or something of the sorts, you kind of forfeited high ground, and the other team just kind of keeps dropping on you and killing you as you struggle to defend. Very snowbally because of that pit, of that drop, um, how quickly you can rush the Rainmaker. Um, it's just a whole W and win map, so I'm not too big a fan of it.
Okay. Sorry. Refresh me on the map that we're talking about. Manta Rainmaker. I think this map. I think it is the worst mode of the three. Personally, I like spots on the tower control a bit better. But yeah, it's not a bad mode. Rainmaker, I do like the diversity of how you could go cut on the right, you could take the street in the middle, or you could even push top left. Although no one really goes top left because it never works. But I like that the option is there. um, yeah. I don't know. I don't really have much to say about it, to be honest. It has the same sort of issues that tower control has with like the elbow being kind of broken, but again, that's not really too bad of a thing. I don't know. Yeah, I'm neutral on this map. I'm fine with it being there, or fine with it not being there.
Yeah, I think the fact that Rainmaker is so much faster than TC makes it a little bit more difficult to use that elbow to kind of cheese pushes, but that could be to a fault because, as David said, I don't know, it's very easy to cheese the Rainmaker, very easy to KO. So it's sometimes it can be entertaining to watch, but from a balance perspective, I think it's just a little bit too snowbally. As far as the voting goes, it is middling in between TC and zones. 49.5% want to play on it, 29% are borderline, 21.6 say it is unviable, and I tend to agree with that. I think it's a good map, but there are some pretty significant flaws that make it, I don't know, it's definitely not a top tier Rainmaker map. Moving on to a map that's kind of forgotten, at least I feel like, and that is Musselforge Fitness. So the two modes here are Rainmaker and Clam Blitz. So let's start off with the Rainmaker. How do you guys feel about Musselforge Rainmaker?
I'm surprised that these are even being voted on. Like just because what you said, this map is forgotten about. Like it's not. It's weird. It's a weird scenario because it's not that bad, but at the same time, no one plays this crap. um, yeah, I think. Yeah, it's not bad, but it's also not good. Wait, Laudia, sorry. What modes was it again?
A Rainmaker and Clamblitz. We can talk
Not
about
even
Rainmaker
zones.
first.
I feel like zones is the best mode for it, but whatever. Rainmaker first. I actually, yeah, I don't mind this. It's another map kind of similar to Humpback that has like that Rainmaker syndrome I was talking about, where if you get wiped once, it is very easy for them to get a good lead. It's not a knockout. Well, it could be, but it's not as easy to knock out as Humpback is, but it is very easy to get it down to like 15 or below. Um, there is that whole there's that whole way you can take it on the left where you go through the zip line, but that way never works out really unless they're not watching. It's kind of the dangerous route, but fast route. But yeah, no, this map is actually not bad in my opinion, but I think a lot of people think that it's worse than I do. So let's hear what you guys have to say.
This is just Humpback Pumptrack, but bad. The left route doesn't work. If the Rainmaker touches those grates, at all, you're just gonna die. You're gonna get shot and killed. Rainmaker's too slow. You can't really move on those grates. You can't really take that left push. You're gonna like what? You're gonna try to take that incre. What if the other team paints it? Like it's not a reliable way to push. It's completely unviable. So you're always running it down the right side, and so you have this elbow. And so there's two options: you wipe the other team and knock out at that elbow, or you just get spammed out and can't move and die. Um, I don't know. It's just the flaws of Humpback are all there, but the cons or like the pros of Humpback aren't. So it just feels like really similar to Humpback, as you said, but just worse.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm a little more high on this map than you are. Chase can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the left rail push, if you get a wipe, I'm pretty sure that's actually the fastest KO in the game, funnily enough.
Yeah.
Which,
Once you get off that rail, it gets it to like 20, and then you just walk a little bit and you're at the pedestal.
yeah, so this is a map that has the fastest KO possible in the game out of any map mode, and yet at the same time, you can almost never take that route because it's, like David said, the grades, unless you get a wipe, you're not getting across that. So you pretty much have one pushing route. That being said, I mean, it's not the worst thing. I think it's kind of interesting because the defense they can wait on roof. They can take that the very top left area and kind of wait you out. And they can also just come at you straight ahead from that ramp area. But so I think team fights that happen there are interesting, but you do make a point there when you say that it's kind of just you wipe them and you KO or you get stuck there because it's pretty much if you win that team fight that does happen there, which by the way, again, like I think the team fight that happens there on that ramp plat area is an interesting fight with the chokes you got to cover, but at the same time, it's if you win that fight, you're probably just gonna win the game right away. So I think I'm actually a little surprised with how high this map is voted. I mean, I don't disagree with how high it's being voted. 52.8 say it's viable, 26.8 borderline, 20.4 unviable. And that sounds about right with how I feel about the map personally, but I'm a little bit surprised that it's that high in general. I think it's an above average Rainmaker map, but definitely not as good as Humpback. I just think there's other Rainmaker maps that are better, but at the same time, nothing wrong with this map being played, in my opinion. Next up, we move to Musselforge Clamblitz. What do you guys think?
There
Uh,
you go first.
I think this is an absolute tire fire of a map. I think this is awful. Um, there's one uninkable surface. Oh, well, there's more than one uninkable surface. There's two uninkable surfaces, and both of them are at the basket. Why they chose to do that, I don't like get it. The distance from the basket to mid isn't really that far, actually. However, there's that uninkable surface, which is the grading to get across. Um, and then there's the glass directly underneath it, which I don't even know why they needed to do that, or that like that tarp thing. Um, Also, you know, like the hump that like every clan blitz right in front of the goal, there's like that hump that like tells you like, yeah, this is where you're meant to stand here and score. Yeah, there's an emitter for clams for a four cluster directly on top of that hump. There's also one to the left of the hump and one on the top right snipe. So if you do have control of that area, you have essentially scored 12 clams without having to move. Your other pushing option is by taking it kind of that right kind of choke area, which in itself is actually not that bad. It's actually a pretty cool dynamic for how you fight. Not many maps have that where your main clam blitz is pretty similar to the Rainmaker if you take it around that elbow and you got to push up. But like, I don't know, other than that, just kind of you're fighting up that ramp. Everything about it is dumb. There's a trench that in between you and mid. Mid is shaped like a pyramid. Those grates just aren't necessary and just kind of make pushes really awkward and stally. And just clam spawns are ridiculous on this map. So I don't know. This is just completely unentertaining to play or watch all around.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to say about this other than I completely agree with David. This map is trash. Any map with like an uninkable surface to get to the basket, and that's the most optimal way to do it, is kind of really bad in my opinion. Yes, pushing on the right side is might actually be a little better because you don't have to go across the grate, but even then, it's still painful going that way because that's right under their spawn. So most likely, there's going to be someone there to stop you. And also, there's another map where like even if there isn't someone there to stop you, then it could lead to like really lame cheese pushes, which I hate on Clam Blitz like a lot. Where someone just sneaks under the basket, then everyone jumps with the power clams. I hate that. So yeah, I don't like this map. I hope it's not picked.
Yeah, that's pretty good summary. Like I said, if you're trying to push grates, you can just pre-fire the grates with some weapon, and the right flank is, in theory, a good counterbalance to that. Only problem is, like Chase said, it's very easy to cheese pushes from up there. If you're not watching that side, like the one thing I hate about that map is if you're in mid, like if you're not in your own spawn when they happen to take that flank, then they're getting to your goal. Like if it's a 4v4 situation and they get around that wall, it's like you don't even have to win a team fight to get a push because they can just sneak behind your basket and there's no way for you to kill them unless you're literally in your spawn. So yeah, I don't think it's a great map, and the voting does support it. 20.9 say it's viable, 33.7% say it's borderline, and 45.4 say that it is unviable. All right, moving on to the next map, we have New Albacore Hotel. Let's start it off with splat zones. I can start it off with this one actually. So this map is very big. The zone, the mid area is pretty large. You have the two courts on either side that are also very. It's a map that really emphasizes like drawn out, spread out team fights because you have pretty much the entire map is just wide open, which makes it very backline heavy in some cases because it's very hard to get backlines off of those bridges and grates. Uh, At the same time, though, I think it's balanced because you have that far right flank, which I usually take. It's very hard for the backline to do anything about that. So while I think backlines are really strong here, there's ways you can get around it, and I don't know. I really enjoy playing on this map mode personally. What about you guys?
Yeah, so I have a similar feeling to this one as I do about Manta Maria splat zones. Backline is very good here, just like super long range weapons, but even with that, it's not bad. um, I like the different routes you could take. Like flanking is really cool, as you do, Latios. Um, and I like how you have to basically jump across the water to get into the zone. I know that could lead to annoying falls, but I do like that option is there. I like that you have to make that jump. And I also like how you could go up into the far left, basically into their spawn. I like that too. So yeah, this is a good map in my opinion. I quite like this map, which you wouldn't expect me to like it, but I do.
Cool. So, out of all the maps that the community considers to be viable, I think New Albacore Hotel is by far the worst, and in my opinion is completely unviable. And so the reason why, the distance from your spawn to the zone isn't really that far. You just swim, drop off one ledge, jump over the water, you're in the spot zone. You literally land inside the spot zone. However, if the other team has control already, you're not making that jump. Somebody's going to kill you. You have to do a full jump in the air over water. You are going to die. That leaves two options. You go on the left or on the right. On the left side there's a whole bunch of those gratings, the uninkable surface, and the same issue of having to jump over water, or you're going to take an incline or whatever. That's the most, sneak 100. You're taking an incline, so he's going to shoot you the second you drop off. It's the dumbest thing in the world. So, but there's still that grading. You can get across that grade. You can run a team fight, or you can go the far right side. However, that grading is so long and so important that if your weapon doesn't have a very good advantage on uninkable surfaces, you can't take that path. That leads to a very one-dimensional map where you can only really go one way to get back in. Just have to run it down right. And it doesn't take much effort for the other team to force you to do that. At the same time, locking out is rather weird because you get to the other team's spawn and it's just this giant wall of high ground. But you can get all the way up to it. It's just above you, straight up above you. It makes for really weird team fights. The zone is obnoxiously large for I don't think doesn't really need a reason. There's just a random block in the middle. It's like, cool, this doesn't do anything, but it's just annoying enough. I don't. The shape of the map is 3 parallel platforms. No other game has that, and this is about what you'd expect from this type of map. It's dysfunctional, in my opinion.
Okay, that's fair. So voting generally positive, 46.5 say should be played, 26.1 borderline, 27.4 say shouldn't be played at all. Now, next up we have a map that honestly I want to know who even thought that this map should be voted on. Why are we voting on Albacore Rainmaker? I don't understand why this is even an option.
I have something to say about this map. I like this map. I think it's severely underrated.
All right.
I know I'm the only one who's gonna say that, but hey, I like Rainmaker. Okay, so yeah, I'll tell you why I like it. I like the amount of different paths you could go. You could take it super far right. You could take it right, but then go left. You could go very far left and then go right. There's like so many different options. Maybe that's why you think it sucks, but I think it's good. But yeah, definitely the best way to take it is going across the short bridge and then going on the uninkable. Oh yeah, that's another reason I like it. I like maps where you're forced to like run on uninkable sections. I don't know why, but that's just like a thing that I like. So, where you're forced to stack run speed. So yeah, that's why I like that map so much. So please, guys, if you are watching this and voting, vote yes.
All right, hold on a second. So I just want to say like I don't know, the uninkable thing doesn't like you're taking the fastest pace mode in the game and then forcing yourself to go like at a snail's pace across those
Don't care.
grades.
No.
Okay. It's just really easy to stop it. And far right, I'm sure David's gonna go over this, but the point mapping on the far right is just awful. Like every
Yeah, I
time
agree
I
with
see
that.
someone in solo queue take that route, it's like, what the hell are you doing? But at the same time, going top left, it's like the defending team has high ground on top left. Like it's really hard to get up there. The backline can just sit up there. You can just spam specials, inkjets, bombs, whatever you want. It's just I don't know. I don't like it. It's one of those maps where it's like if you got two good teams playing each other, it's really hard to KO. If you have two bad teams playing each other, then it's like a free KO. I don't know. I just don't like it.
Statistically wise, this Rainmaker map does almost everything incorrectly. Rainmaker is a mode where your position on the map, swimming vertically, is what scores points. This map is mostly horizontal. It's 3 horizontal platforms. I've said this before. And that means the distance from mid to the Rainmaker pedestal is really short. Same way that it's really short from the distance to mid to spawn. Hence, you can shoot the Rainmaker pedestal with most midline weapons without dropping off of your spawn. Chase was talking about the different point mappings, and I think it's awkward when you grab the Rainmaker, move completely parallel to it, and gain points in either which way. If you go left, you're getting points by simply moving parallel to the pedestal, and then you go up that elbow, and that part's actually pretty fine, especially with the way that you can use the block to either get on top, but that's a little more risky. So you take the slower option, which is the uninkable surface, which I'm not opposed to. It's just way too long in that area. And the other issue is you talk about the short bridge being the best way. It's an uninkable surface that now you have 2 uninkable surfaces between you and the Rainmaker pedestal. And shockingly enough, the Rainmaker is not a fast weapon. So it's just, you just feel like everyone's just kind of walking around in this what's meant to be a really fast-paced game. It's only 5 minutes. You know, everyone spawns really fast, everyone dies really fast. It's meant to be super fast, and yeah, we're just we're vibing, we're walking around. And then the other option, you go to the right. You don't get about any points. You can keep getting closer to the pedestal until you hit like this. You know, you go from like 80 points to 40 points in about 2 strides. The point mapping is completely broken because, again, there's the map is more parallel. However, you got to get closer to it vertically. There's certain corners you can just kind of take the Rainmaker to this random corner and get like 30 points. It's like, hey, that's cool. Why you can do that? Why there's a point mapping there? Not exactly sure. Overall, the shape of the spawn area is the weirdest in the game. I don't think there's anything functional about this map mode, to be honest.
Yeah, I would agree, and the voting generally does agree as well. 66.8% say this map should never be played. 18.6 are borderline, and Chase's posse of people who like the map is sitting here at 14.6%.
Hey, those are my guys.
All right, well, moving on to Clam Blitz. I'm just gonna start this one off as well. New Albacore clams, I feel kind of the same way that I do about zones. I personally enjoy playing on it. I think I don't know. I mean, I don't have a whole lot to say about this compared to zones. I feel like it's very similar in terms of the way you play it. Only real difference is that it kind of combines. I feel like it's in between zones and Rainmaker because it's like you combine the difficulty of trying to push across grates with Rainmaker with I don't know, with the unique map layout of zones, and I just feel like it creates this weird hybrid where it's like, yeah, I mean, the mid area is interesting. There's different flank routes you can take. There's a few different areas where you can have really drawn out, spread out team fights, but at the same time, it has the same issue as Rainmaker where you're going across grades. So I personally like playing on it, but I do understand why people may not like playing on it as much. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I used to despise this map, but I actually don't mind it anymore. I'm not sure what changed exactly. I think it was just like we kind of discussed what we need to do here, and then we actually had a plan. So it's actually a bit more bearable now. But even with saying that, this is a pretty hard map that you could get a lot of games where like nobody scores for like 4 minutes. But I kind of like maps like that. Like anchovy clams is similar. But yeah, it has the same like high points that the other modes have. So yeah, I would like this map to. Well, actually, no. Let me rephrase. I'm fine with this map being there. I'm not gonna say I would like it to be there. I'm fine with it being there.
I'm gonna sound like a broken record, so I'm actually gonna save you from telling you the things that are wrong with it are the same that's wrong with Rainmaker, same that's wrong with Splat Zones. The map is just shaped incorrectly. The grading makes it one-dimensional because of how much it limits certain weapons. I'm not gonna go. It's literally the same as Zones and Rainmaker, all the same flaws. I guess the one good thing, there's only one emitter next to the basket, so you can only really get 4 lucky clams in. You can't just randomly, score almost 50 points by just kind of AFKing next to the basket. So that's good. Other than that, it's just as dysfunctional as the other maps and should not be played.
Okay, so as far as the voting goes, this one is very mixed and is in between the other two. 31.7 say it's viable, 27.8 say it's borderline, 40.5 say that it is unviable. So slightly skewed towards being unviable. Let's move on to another map that's a little bit iffy, at least on TC. We have Piranha Pit. But before we go over TC, let's talk about Splat Zones first. How do you guys feel about this one?
I think on Splat Zones, it's all right. The dynamic of like there's the right drop and then there's the left conveyor, and so you have to hold kind of both of those to hold the zone. It's different. It can make for some kind of silly looking engagements, if that makes sense. But I like it. It provides a unique and creative way to approach a Splat Zones map. The way that you kind of have to hold like a whole entire rectangle. However, I can definitely see how, especially with like mid-level teams, of like it just becomes kind of stupid running around the rosy, running around these conveyors and suiciding until someone gets a wipe. So I'm kind of mixed on it.
Wait, sorry, I blacked out for a second. We're talking about Piranha Pit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Piranha Zones. Yeah, Piranha Zones is an interesting one. I don't hate it, but there's definitely some stupid things that could happen on this map. First of all, if anyone tries to missile spam on this map, screw you. I hate the people who do that on this map.
Frito.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say Frito. Yeah, but no, not a lot of people do that, so that's fine. The conveyors are. I don't like the conveyors. I was gonna say they're fine, but they're actually not fine. I kind of despise them. I hate. There's so many times where, because I usually play like Lugos on this map, and there's a lot of times where I'll throw a splash ball on the conveyor accidentally, and then the splash ball just slowly moves away from me, and I end up dying because I threw it on the conveyor. But that's a personal gripe. In terms of actually playing on the map, I think that range is good here. They can. It's very easy for them to drop from the left side of the spawn, or their right side, but your left side when you come out. And then a lot of fighting happens on the left side, on the left conveyor. I don't know. I don't have a lot of opinions on this map other than I don't know. I don't really have much to say about it. I think it's fine though.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, my personal opinion is I think it's a good map. My one gripe with it, and I think if this map didn't have this problem, it would be top tier, is the conveyors. So it's not so much the actual like raised surface that I have a problem with. It's the fact that the conveyors are moving around. Like if they made those conveyors on the left and right just a static surface, I think it would be a lot better. Because yeah, I mean it's pretty easy for you to just sit up there and take a high ground position and paint over the zone, but it's also very accessible to both teams. So I think if they just removed the like the moving part of it, I think it would be a great map. But overall, still above average map. I don't have any problems with it. And Voting tends to agree. 54% say they like it. 29.8 are iffy, and 16.2 don't like
Nice.
it. So let's move on to TC on this map, which is a lot more controversial. How do you guys personally feel
Yeah,
about
I
it?
definitely think it's a lot worse than Splat Zones. Although, even with saying that, I do like it. The tower path is kind of weird because you start in mid, then like you rotate around and go back towards them. It's hard to describe, but I don't like the tower path on this map. But yeah, I don't know. I would say I prefer it not to be there, but I'm fine if it is there.
Okay, that's fine.
Tower path is just completely broken.
Yeah,
It doesn't
Yeah,
work.
I agree.
I was trying to be nice about it, but yes, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, the tower path makes no sense on this one. Like, it's, it just feels like no matter which team has the tower, that either team can get to it. Like, it doesn't really make any sense because if you're the defending team and you stop a push, the other team can still get back on tower pretty easily because it goes like through their side of like through their court to get back to mid. So it's sometimes really hard to actually regain control because when the tower is coming back after a push, it goes through the enemy side of the map, so they can just get right back on it. It's I don't know. I don't like that design. I think as far as the actual choke points that you have to control and the routes that you take to push, it's a really interesting map and I like it, but it's a very mediocre map for me just because the tower path makes no sense and it's really hard for the defending team to gain like a solid advantage in a retake in mid. And then this is one of the most mixed maps as far as voting goes. 34.8 are in favor, 27 are iffy on it, and 38.2 say that it shouldn't be played at all. And then last mode on this map is Clamblitz. What do you guys think?
This map is very easy to like get pushed out on, and it's another map where actually that's not true. I was gonna say it's easy to score here, but it's definitely not as easy as some of the other maps we were talking about. But yeah, defense just in general is hard on this map. I kind of meant to say it is, and then when you come out of spawn, it's also very easy to just die immediately. So you need to be careful, and you definitely need to push with teammates on this one. Don't drop into under your spawn when they're scoring. But and then in terms of actually on the offense is way better on this map than the defense. I'll say that. um, yeah, I don't know. This map, I'm neutral about it.
I think it does a lot of good things for Clamblitz. The only awkward thing is your spawn is like really far away from the basket, and it's awkward because when you're pushing, your enemies are going to come from your left, and normally they come straight down main. But even when you're defending, it's kind of awkward how you've got this like side view of what's happening. However, that's as we talk with Albacore, that's what's going to happen when your map is more horizontal than it is vertical. So yeah, I don't know. That's why it's just kind of mediocre.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Voting is pretty positive as a whole, though. This is the most, since we got off of MakoMart, this is the most favorable map. 66% think it's viable, 17.4 say it's borderline, and 16.7 say it is unviable. Next up, David, I know you wanted to rip into this map. We have Shellendorf Institute. Start off with splat zones. Why don't you start us off with this one? Because I know you have some things you wanted to say about this.
So I'm sure the voting is probably gonna be super negative, and that everyone hates this one. So let me tell you the actual facts about Shellendorf. The high versus low ground creates a very interesting dynamic of there's the roof and then there's a completely different part of the fight, which is on the bottom, as well as you can probably split the map on the right and the left and the middle. So this has the most potential for different team dynamics and different compositions and different strategies for how you want to approach a team fight. To me, that makes a really good zones map. The difference with the uninkable surfaces on this map versus other versions of Shellendorf and other uninkable maps, heavy maps, the part that's uninkable doesn't affect the splat zone too much. It's the top part, which as we kind of talked is like, high ground's a power position. However, that uninkable surface isn't where you want to be most of the time, because it restricts your movement. It provides a dynamic. It doesn't negatively impact the game. There's different varying elevations on that high ground. There's different ways to flank. There's different ways to try to lock out. There's several different ways to try to push in. Only issue is spawn's a little far away. Considering the fact that if you want to take the high ground, it takes a lot longer because you're walking. But Schellendorf just takes off a lot of good things about what you want in a zones map, and a lot of people just don't like it because they don't want to adapt to a map with so many dynamics and so much thinking that should be happening mid game.
Yeah, Schellendorf zones. The roof is kind of annoying. I rarely go there because I constantly get picked off by the backline on the other team. For the weapons that I use, I don't know. I don't really like it that much because my weapons aren't that good there. But I don't know. As a whole, though, the map I don't think is that bad. I think it gets a little worse rap than it deserves. I love flanking the roof on that map. That's fun. Or going around that's fun and flanking the roof that way. But yeah, I don't know. Like this map, I don't really have much to say about either, other than I don't know. Yeah, I'm fine if it's there, but I also wouldn't mind if it's not there.
I think this map is decent. I mean, I think it's like the glass does heavily favor backlines, but unlike the bad modes on this map, there's ways you can get around it. Like it lends itself more to backline duels on the glass than it does to just backlines destroying everything, which I like. You have the flank route, which you guys talked about. Most of the fight is going to happen on the low ground in zones, and I think the layout of the map on the low ground is really interesting. You have a lot of different ways you can get angles on people, get flanks off, and the glass flank is just that. It's a flank. It's not like the other modes on this map where it's overly centralized around that glass area. So overall, I think it's a good zones map. I don't mind it, and I don't understand why this map has such a low percentage. I think Schellendorf just gets a bad
Yeah,
rap.
exactly.
17.9% are in favor, 20.8 are borderline on it, and 61.4% don't want this map to be played, which if you look at it, this map has a lower percentage than Camp Triggerfish zones of upvotes. More people want to play Camp Triggerfish zones than want to play Schellendorf spot
That is very
zones. I don't know. Just thought that was
yeah.
interesting. TC, similar story with the voting. What do you guys think about this map?
Better than zones, in my opinion. I grown to like TC on this map. Although there are still some annoying points, like when it's at the second checkpoint, I believe that part sucks because people just go on the roof, and then yes, you could go up there, but it's still very hard to stop. It's very hard to stop the defense. And dying on the tower is very common here, and there's not a lot of room to move on the left side of the map when you're pushing the tower. It's very cramped. I wish it was a little wider, but still, I do like this mode a bit better than Spot Zone. So I wouldn't mind if it was in the map list.
I agree with Chase on everything. He actually hit like every point that I wanted to hit. So yeah, nothing to say there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree as well. I mean, I honestly, when they first started playing this map at tournaments, I didn't think I was gonna like it, but I really have grown to like it, and I don't know, like the roof can be a bit of a power position for the defending team, but it's not broken to the point where it's impossible to push past that, like because the tower is about the same level as that glass, so you can still contest those who are on the glass, and you have the option to flank as well. So I don't think it's game breaking. I think it's an above average TC map, and I personally think this should be played. It is played in tournaments. I mean, some very high profile tournaments have featured games on this map, and which is why I don't understand why the voting percentage is so low. 22%, just 22% think that this map should be played. 57% think it shouldn't ever be played. And out of all the maps in this list, I think Shellendorf is the most shocking. Like I don't understand why so many people hate this map. I mean, I don't know. But it is what it is. Next up, we have another map that's this one is just weird. Skipper Pavilion. Started off with splat zones. I guess I can start off with this one. So obviously the main defining characteristic of this map from a gameplay like comp standpoint is the right side and left side peaking dynamic. So I forget which team Alpha or Bravo gets the peaking advantage. I just know what if you're Alpha, you get one side. If you're Bravo, you get the other. One side has a right peak advantage. The other has to try and left side peak. Other than that, I don't think it's a terrible map. I mean, it's a little bit awkward in that the bottom section is so separated from the top section, which is more of a problem in clams than it is for this mode, but I think it's a little bit awkward because you kind of wind up with two different fights going on at the same time. You got like two players going down bottom of the zone engaging each other, and you got two more up top, which usually you got backlines going top fighting each other, and then you have some more players going up there. So it's weird because it's like Camp Triggerfish in the way that it's you got two different team fights going on at the same time, except both of the fights are happening in areas that are completely accessible by both teams at any time. So I don't know. I just think the layout is a little weird with how narrow it is from mid to top. But outside of that, I think it's the distance from the zone is I think it's I don't know. It feels kind of
It's a lot
long,
longer on average.
but yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like retakes are hard here, but I don't mind it personally. I think it's by far the best mode on this map. I don't think there's any other mode on this map that should ever be played.
Yeah,
What
I
do you
do
guys think?
like this map, and you know this. This is probably my favorite map in the game. Not just because of spot zones, because I actually like the other modes on it, but I won't talk about that. But for spot zones though, yeah, it's the same reasons why I like Camp Triggerfish. I like the strategy that's involved. Although Camp Triggerfish is a little more intuitive because it's a bit more split on that map. But the same thing does still apply here, where you have to split people up correctly. Like have two people go top, two people go bottom. But yeah, Ladios, what you said is definitely true about how retaking is hard. If you guys get wiped, this map kind of sucks to get back out on. And definitely, this is the map that happens the most. Well, you could get it down to like 5 left on the counter and still lose easily just because of how this map works and how hard it is to get in. So you have to be very careful when you come out of spawn, and you have to really work with your teammates to make sure you can get that zone back. But I do like this map. I think that it should be on the map list. I feel like it would.
The distance from your spawn to the zone is one of the longer, and I think is the longest out of all of the maps in this LUTI map list for the zones. Um, the difference between the other maps is the zone is what's separating the two fights, right? So there's a fight on the top and there's a fight on the bottom. The thing separating them isn't some sort of obstruction, isn't some sort of water hazard. It's the zone itself. The zone is shaped very different as it gets narrow closer to the top, um, and it's on a ramp, but the ramp isn't even. It's like a slope. There's a pillow in the middle of it. I'm not exactly sure why. Who keeps putting a pillow in the middle of this flat zone and what it's meant to accomplish, but it's there. There's a pillow on top of the zone, like above it. Um, yeah, once you get control, there's nowhere to go. You can't really push up. You can't really get towards their spawn. You just gonna shark and wait for them to drop. Um, Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a fan of it. I don't think it works on zones at all.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. Just to clarify, I mean, like I said, I do think this is by far the best mode on this map. I wouldn't say that it's a great map. I just think that it's playable, but I don't think it's exceptional. Voting is pretty favorable, actually. 38.2% of the voters said it was borderline, so it's not like a massive consensus, but 19% to 42% who are in favor of it. It's heavily skewed towards being viable. All right, now let's move on to another map that should not be in this map list. Skipper Clams. Chase, why don't you talk about this one first? Because I know you have some experience with this
Yes.
one.
So you know how I said I like Skipper, right? This is the only thing holding it back from making it the perfect map because this mode is trash on this map. The splitting thing with camp and what we just talked about for Skipper zones, it doesn't work well with Clam Blitz. I'm sorry, it doesn't. I know some people disagree with that, but I'm sorry, it does not work. The ways that you get to the basket are so hard to push. This is another map where the things happen where you'll get games that last 4 minutes and no one has scored yet, or you'll win a game by scoring once and not getting any other clams in. Also, Baller is like weirdly broken on this map just because you could there's so much room to move in and you can go from the top or the bottom, and I don't like that because that just leads to more cheese pushes. What else makes this map trash? Latios, you go ahead next. You name we played this map together so much. You name some other things that suck about this map.
Oh boy. So one thing that sucks is how much longer the flank route is compared to the other routes. So the top route is it's by far, I think, the shortest distance from spawn to spawn, like on a clamless map. Like the distance from the enemy spawn to your spawn is smaller than the distance from mid to your spawn, which is true for the other modes too, but the difference is you can actually get to their spawn on Clamblitz. It's extremely accessible, and you can get right up into their spawn. So it's just this weird awkward dynamic where it's super easy to get there, but at the same time it's also easy for them to just shark. So you wind up with this weird thing where it's like just a stalemate on top where you have the defending team trying to pre-fire you through this little choke point, and then the only other way you can push in is this super long winded flank route, and that's why it's so hard to score here, just because yeah, there's a really short route to goal, but it's just you can't really score going that way reliably without a flank route to divert attention away, because it's just so easy to pre-fire that and cover that choke, and the flank route takes so long to get to that it's really hard to score and maintain points here. I just don't like it.
Um, I don't know if I really need to say much besides, uh, you know the shrine area? Neither do I. What is the point of it? What's the point of it? It's just there. There's no clam spawn there. There's no reason for it to be there. The whole mid area is kind of weird. And
Yeah, same thing with Piranha Pit and the useless areas on the side.
right, it's just a useless area, except it's just kind of
Yeah.
there. It's in between the two spawns. Um, Speaking of which, the distance from your basket to the other team's basket, between the two baskets, is the shortest in the game by a substantial margin. It is shorter than the distance from the basket to mid. I don't think I really have to say anything else besides that is backwards and it doesn't work.
Yep, we know it's trash. That's all we need to say.
Yep. Luckily, the voting does support
Oh,
that. 14,
my faith in
14.1%
humanity has been
think this
restored.
14.1% say it should be played. Still way too high. It should be 0, but 14.8 say it's borderline. 71.1 merciful souls think that this should not be played.
Good.
Okay, let's move on to another map. We have Snapper Canal. Now this one is interesting just because similar to Musselforge, the two modes that it's good on are considered the two like weaker modes in the game. which would be Rainmaker and Clamblitz. So let's start off with the Rainmaker. What do you guys think about Snapper
All right,
Rainmaker?
so Snapper Rainmaker is fine, but it does have one like major flaw with it, and that is the Rainmaker stalling strategy on the far left. That's kind of broken. If you get a lead to like 20, you could just hold the Rainmaker on the very far left of the map, and that makes it very hard for the enemy team to do anything, because once they finally wipe you guys, they have to take it all the way across the map back to the other side. So they need to make that Rainmaker free zone or something. If Snapper Canal comes back in Splatoon 3, which I don't think it is going to, but they need to put a Rainmaker free zone there. But yeah, besides that, gripe, I think the map is actually pretty good. It has that same cool concept of having one route that's very safe and gets points slower. It also has one very dangerous route. It goes right under their spawn, but gives you points fast. I like maps that have that. Yeah, this is definitely one of the better Rainmaker maps in my opinion.
I agree with Chase. There's some points where you can kind of stall the Rainmaker, which is really awkward. However, the right push being worth a lot, but being dangerous versus the left push, which is a lot slower, but in the long run might give you more points. It's a lot safer. It's a good dynamic. It splits the map really well. Good team fights all around. Only weird thing is like in top mid, there's in the mid, there's that like thing. I don't know what the thing is. It's just a thing there. That's the only weird part. Other than that, I think it's a fantastic Rainmaker map.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. And um, yeah, I mean, I do think the camping strat is the one thing that would make this not top tier for Rainmaker, but even with that, I think both the pushing routes are really unique and interesting and serve different purposes. You can push straight ahead and get a lot of points if you win a team fight big. Go left and you can have a safe pushing route. It's kind of similar to MakoMart in that way, but another thing I want to point out that I personally like, I don't know how other people feel about this, the pop doesn't have really much of an impact. I think on some maps, the pop, like MakoMart Rainmaker, I think, for example, the pop has way too big of an impact on the opening. And I like how this map, you're not, the pop doesn't really limit you as much because it doesn't paint mid all that much. The team that gets the pop doesn't get a huge amount of control, which I don't know. I personally like that. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but
I like that. Yeah, I don't. I always think it's dumb when people like die to the pop
Mhm.
or it just gets a bunch of control.
okay. Well, voting is right about where I'd expect it to be. It's 56.3 say it's viable, 27.4 say it's borderline, 16.2 say that it is not viable. Next up, we have Clamblitz on Snapper Canal. I guess I can start off with this one. So I think this is a really good Clams map, personally. I mean, you have three different ways you can push it. You can go the flank route, you can go straight ahead, and you can go far left. I think neither of those three routes are broken or like unworkable. I think they're all reasonable routes with different strengths. And I think there's a lot of different places you can go to like set up a push. You can go straight through mid, or if you're like me and your weapon isn't really great at going across the high ground through street, you can take the top left area. It's a good spot to use inkjet from or other specials to get control of the basket area. So I don't know. I just think it's a really good map. There's a lot of different weapons are strong here, and while the goal area does kind of favor ranged weapons that can abuse that high ground, you also have a lot of options if you're a frontline weapon. There's some good flank routes. You can go across the uninkable on their sneaky, and you can also hold that left area and apply a lot of pressure from there. So I just think it's really balanced map. I don't really have any complaints about this, to be honest. What do you
Yeah,
guys
no,
think?
this map is weird because on paper it sounds bad. Like when you think of Clam Blitz on Snapper, you'd be like, "Oh, that's gonna suck," but it's actually not bad. And then it's really hard to say why. I mean, Latias, you summed it up pretty well. I don't really have many complaints about this map. Um, there's a lot of options where you can go in to score, but it's not like Musselforge where it's really easy to get a cheese push, because if you flank around behind, you have to go on the uninkable, which is the perfect way it should be done. If you want to get a cheese flank going, you have to walk on like uninkable turf, so it's very easy to spot you.
I think that's the best way for a map to do it. So, and then the other ways you can go through the cannon on the left side, you can go far left, or you can go through mid. All three of those ways are viable, and yeah, I don't know, I just really like it. Yeah, it's like I give it like a 8.5 out of 10. Actually, I think it's a pretty good map.
I think I agree all around. Splits the map really well. Interesting team dynamics. Like all the different ways you can push. That makes it for very creative team fights. And there's no really bad clam spawns that are unfair. Like, oh, there's like 10 different ways to score. Like, I think it's a very balanced map for Clam Blitz.
Okay, yeah, I would agree with all that. Voting is very favorable. 72.2% agree that this map should be in the map list. 14.8 say it's borderline. 13 say it shouldn't be played at all, which sounds about right. Let's move on to Starfish Mainstage. We'll start off with Tower Control. What do you guys think about this one?
One of my favorite maps. I literally have no complaints about this map. The only complaint I might have is I hate when people shark in the attic, and that gets annoying. But I mean, you can have someone check that, so I guess that's not really a fair complaint. That's just more of an annoyance that I have.
Dude, we would have taken a game off Sayonara if they didn't
Yeah,
do that
exactly.
stupid attic
Yeah,
shark.
yeah. I should have known because I do that to people. But yeah, no, I literally have nothing to say. Like this map just kind of does everything correctly. I mean, in solo, this map is kind of painful, but that's because it's solo. Whereas in competitive, no, if you're playing with a team who knows what they're doing, this is a very, very fun map. It kind of does everything right.
Yeah, high ground in all the right areas, flank options, aggression options, team fight in mid, good tower pathing. Only gripe is there's always that weird checkpoint at the end for some reason. Not exactly sure why they put one right before you knock out, but it does make for some last minute thrillers. So there's no complaints here.
Okay, yeah, I tend to agree with everything you guys said. Only real gripe I have is I feel like the mid fight is a little awkward, but that's mostly just because of the weapon I play. T-Deck doesn't have that much range to contest with backlines or other mid-range weapons in mid, but I still like this map a lot. Pushing, it's really intuitive. You have, you have to go right to try and cover the snipe, prevent them from sharking tower as it goes past that checkpoint, which it's very accessible by both the defense and the offense, which is good. Top left is a strong point for the defense to be in, but it's also not so close to the tower that it becomes a problem. You have to have a pretty long range weapon to be able to reliably sit up there and poke at the tower. So it's overall there's no chokes that are really too favorable or unfavorable for the defense. So just a really good map overall. I think it's very balanced and both the defense and offense have good options here. So overall voting is overwhelmingly positive. 80% say this map should be in the list, 13.1 are borderline, and 6.9 say it shouldn't be used at all. And let's go to Rainmaker on Starfish. This is the only other mode on this map, which is a little surprising to me. But yeah, what do you guys think about Starfish Rainmaker?
There's really there's no issues in terms of bad Rainmaker point mapping as far as I've ever seen. There's I guess somewhat limited options with how you push it. You don't really see the top left push too often, but that fight in pit always feels like a really fun choke. It's just like one of the best places to have those like it's really hard to get in. It's a really big team fight. The defending green team always has high ground and all that. Feels really balanced. I think the only weird issue is like how the Rainmaker pedestal is like kind of off to the left of the spawn. You know, if you gotta get up the ramp and then go right. Um, Other than that, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I agree with David. I think this map is very balanced. My only gripe is that defense on this map can kind of suck if like all four of the opposing people are like in your pit basically. It gets a little annoying there, but I don't know. Besides that though, it's a perfectly fine map. I don't really have any bad things to say about it besides that. I would like it to be in the map list.
Yes.
Yep, I would agree with that. I think it's similar to TC in the way that you push. You got the left push route, which I mean, honestly, there's not a whole lot of variety in the way you can push, but it's fine because on this map the chokes are really balanced. As David said, the team fight that happens in the pit is really interesting because there's cover that you can use to kind of shield yourself from enemies that are trying to push you from the goal area, but there's also enough space that you can have like really interesting interactions there, both with and without the Rainmaker. So yeah, I just think it's pretty similar to TC and the fact that this just doesn't have a whole lot of problems. It's good options for the defense and the offense. Um, Voting is a little less favorable, but still very positive. 73.3% agree that this map should be in the list. 16.7 say borderline, and 10% say that it shouldn't be in the list at all.
Mhm.
All right, next up we have Sturgeon Shipyard, which has 3 modes that are being voted on. The first of which is Splat Zones. Yeah, what do you guys think about this one?
Spot Zone Sturgeon. I think it's a fine map. I really like beacons here. I feel like beacons are a great sub on this on this map. But the okay, so, well, the one problem I have with it is I don't know. I feel like Suction Bomb Rush is kind of broken on this map, like more so than other maps. I mean, it's broken in zones in general, but I don't know. On this map, Suction Bomb Rush can be really annoying. I just I spam it, fire fins, spider scopes, spam it, and then yeah, I don't know. Just not a fun time when there's Suction Bomb Rush being spammed. But besides that, it's a good map. Yeah, like that's the only complaint I have. But I was trying to find more things to complain about, but that's really all I can complain about. So yeah, I'm I'm down for that map.
Yeah, it's really good. Different ways to push back in after getting locked out. The concept of locking them out is pretty dynamic because you have to go through their pit, try to get to their street. Um, like the battle in mid, there's different elevations, different geometry. There's the part on the bottom that I like to call Brazil. And yeah, the bottom mid, you call it Brazil because that's Fight Club, dude.
Ah,
Yeah. And I don't know. I find it's very fun map to play on Spy Zones.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the only gripe I have with this one is it feels like it's a long distance from spawn to zone. So while there are good retake options, they can take a little bit like a little while to repaint your pit area, and if the other team gets on your spinner, it's I guess the best way I could describe it is you need to be really disciplined on defense, but at the same time, if you're smart about it and you're patient, there's plenty of ways you can get back in, and overall, it's a very balanced and enjoyable map. Um, and the voting does support that as well. 76.2% agree that it should be viable. 15.2 say borderline, and 8.6 don't think it should be in the list. Next up, tower control. I guess I can start off with this one. So the main thing about this map that sets it apart from other TC maps is it's only 2 checkpoints. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the only viable 2 checkpoint TC map. I could be wrong, but I can't think of any others. But that makes it very snowbally. Once you get once you get down into their pit underneath that window area, it's not too difficult to KO. But at the same time, getting like the chokes on this map are very like accessible to both the defense and the offense, which that's kind of what TC is all about, is having these strongholds that both teams have access to, and it's really just a matter of which team can gain control of those points on the map. And on this map, pretty much all of the major points that you want to use to defend are accessible to both teams, which makes for an interesting battle between the defending team and the pushing team. You got to control their window, you got to control their snipe great area. Again, my only real gripe with this is that if you do successfully control those areas, it's pretty easy to get down to like 20 or below. But just because like the chokes you need to control to get it to 50 are the same ones you need to control to get it to like 20. so it's pretty easy to get big pushes here. But layout-wise, I think this is a really good map, fun map to play. It's very snowbally, but personally doesn't bother me too much. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, all the positives you listed, I agree with. The only thing I don't like is how fast the path goes after the last checkpoint. It feels once you complete that last checkpoint, it's like instant knockout. I feel like it is rough. But yeah, no. Besides that, though, it's a pretty good map. I like the way that the tower moves. Yeah, no, yeah, I'm up for it.
Yeah, same. I agree. The checkpoints are kind of set up weird, so it makes it a little snowbally. But other than that, checks off everything you want in a tower control.
Okay, yeah, I would agree. And this is actually the most highly rated map of Sturgeon's 3 maps. 80.4% think this is viable, 15.7% think it's borderline, and just 3.8% don't think it should be in the list. So very positive map. I think that is warranted. And lastly, we have Rainmaker on Sturgeon. What do you guys think about this?
So I think this is awful. The point mapping on right side and even like the sponge area is kind of weird. You go from not getting many points to getting a butt ton really quickly. If not, that means you're taking it top left, which is a very narrow area to push. If the other team's already set up, you're just gonna die. If the spinner on that top left area is up, you can just jump into the pit and continuously get points until you die. You can get like a good 10-15 points from suiciding because you're technically moving forward because of the way that the Rainmaker is mapped there. And if the spinner is down and the Rainmaker dies on it, halfway through the fight, the spinner might just move up and make the Rainmaker unaccessible to one of the teams, depending on what side it's on. To me, that's just awful. And when the spinner's up, it's even more cramped because you're just going literally like a 1-by-1 hallway. I don't know. It's the point mapping is just really off for this mode, so I'm gonna have to hard no.
Yeah. This is gonna sound kind of weird, but this is the only map mode in the game where I like it in solo, but I hate it in comp. And I can't exactly tell you why. I'm not sure. It's probably because in solo I'm not always facing like good backline players, but when we're playing against like people near our level, we're usually facing like a decent backline. So and then when you're facing a backline on this map, pushing the Rainmaker sucks. There's like nowhere for you to move because they always have a good angle on you. Now, with that being said, I do like the pathing for this map, like the diversity of the paths you can take. Top left is definitely the best way to go, in my opinion, just because it's the safest. Pushing sponge is super overrated. I don't know why people like that so much. It results in death 95% of the time. But yeah, I don't know. Pushing top. Oh, I do like the trick you could do where you like suicide in the chasm and get it to 35. That's a cool trick in my opinion. I like maps that have cool little neat tricks like that with the Rainmaker. But yeah, no, I don't like this map for comp. I would be happy if it's not there.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with pretty much everything you guys are saying. Just to add a couple things. So the sponge push that you guys were talking about, that push is so much worse than the top left push to the point where people like me in some cases will just go a toxic mist weapon to make sure that you can't take that push because the other two pushes are so much harder to get points on that if you can lock out that top left, then it's really difficult because again the point mapping is horrible when you go far right. On sponge it's okay, but it's really easy for the defense to pre-fire you when you go up that sponge, and the sponge has to be painted for you to even get up it. And again, anything with RNG, I think any time the game decides when you're going to be able to push a certain part of the map, I think that's just horrible balance. So, like David said, the spinner being up and down at certain times can screw over one team if it happens at the wrong part of the game. I do like I think the chasm trick is interesting. You can get it to what, like 35 or 36, depending on how well you time your jump. But I think either that should be the only way that the spinner is set up, or it should always be down. I think if they did that, then it would be a solid map. But I think as it stands right now, it's just, I don't know. I don't like. I can't say I dislike playing on it, but I think from a design standpoint, it's got a lot of problems and probably shouldn't be played. And the voting is very positive, actually. Over 70% of people say that they want this map in the list. And I don't know. I mean, again, I think this is a map that a lot of people don't hate like playing on like from an enjoyment perspective, but they understand that the design is terrible. You know, I just feel like it's no one's gonna see this map picked and be like, oh God, why are we playing on this map? But at the same time, they're gonna recognize that there's a lot of problems on this map, and trying to decide which way your team is gonna push is weird on this map compared to other maps because the pushing routes are all flawed in their own way. So yeah, I agree with you guys. I think the voting shouldn't be as high as it is. Let's move on to a map that is a little bit more overwhelmingly positive, and that is the Reef. What about splat zones? Let's start up with splat zones. What do you guys think about this one?
I like this map. Similar to Starfish Tower Control, I pretty much have no complaints about it. I would have had complaints if they didn't redesign it, but they actually made it a good map after they redesigned it. So yeah, the two zones. I know I've heard some people say they don't like that. I think that's a good thing. I love jumping off the bridge and splashdowning on the zone and getting like a double or triple kill. That's the most satisfying thing in the world. Yeah, no, I really like this map. I would love for this to be in the map list.
I think after the redesign, the Reef became the perfect Splatoon 2 map. It chucks off everything. Different sides to control. There's the right and there's the left. There's the top mid, which is high ground. There's the bottom mid, which is the objective in most cases. There's different ways to try to lock out the other team. The team that's being locked out has several different methods to break back in. And it's the epitome of zones of you have to control the whole map. You have to win the turf battle, specifically the one in mid. And just the bridge dynamic, the layout, the map itself, everything is perfect. I think it's by far the best map in the game.
Okay, that's fair. As far as zones go specifically, I think it's not particularly exciting, but also very balanced, and you can play a lot of different weapons here and do well. It's doesn't favor backlines too heavily, which I like. I mean, I know that backline players sometimes don't like this map, but there's good flank routes. There's not a whole lot of wide open areas where you can just get locked out by ranged weapons, which I also like, especially with the current state of the meta right now. I feel like always have a chance of competing on this map with T-Tech, even against stuff like, Nautilus, Bamboo, whatever. But yeah, I just think for zone specifically, I'm not personally a fan of the double zone just because I think it's a little too easy to neutralize and cap sometimes. I've lost games just because it's a double zone and not a single zone multiple times, including in tournaments. But other than that, I really like this map mode. And the voting does align with that. 80.7 in favor, 13.4 are borderline, and 5.9% say it shouldn't ever be played. Let's go to TC. What do you guys think about this one?
TC on the Oh, sorry, David. Go ahead.
Yeah. I think exactly the same as what I just said. The only issue is the tower gets a little too many points, not moving towards the goal. It kind of just moves weird behind the tree and just kind of chills there for a bit. Other than that, perfect.
Yeah, the only thing that I wish was different about this map mode is on the left side. I wish it was similar to Clamblitz, where you could actually like get up near their car. I mean, I get why you can't, but I would like if you could, because a lot of times where I just you send someone left to keep an eye on that while the tower's pushing up through mid, and then you can't get up there. You just kind of have to shark it out and left. And a lot of times there's like a nautilus there or something that just sees me sharking and then just completely drops and destroys me. So I wish there was a way to get up there, like instead of a wall, it was a ramp or something. But that's a minor nitpick. Other than that, same thing that I said about Reef Zones. Flawless map, basically. Well, flawless besides the thing I just said. Yeah, I like this map a lot. I usually go. I've been going Flingsa here a lot recently because I feel like missiles are quite good here.
Yes, they
Yeah.
are. So as far as the checkpoints, or not the checkpoints, like the choke points, I think it's really interesting. They change very drastically as the tower moves, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. And once you start your push, you really need to have control of bridge and the enemy tree area. But once you get towards the end of your push, you need to basically be in their spawn car area to keep your push going. The one thing that is a little iffy for me is it feels at times like it's a little too easy to stop pushes at around 70 just by flanking through bridge. But I'm pretty confident that that is just like a strategic issue, and that if you aligned your players correctly, that that's not really a big concern. I think it's if as long as you can control that bridge area at the start of your push, then it's not too big of a deal. I think overall it's pretty evenly split between the offense and the defense. So yeah, I really like this map as well. And the voting, same number of people think that this is favorable compared to zones, 80.7, 12.4 think it's borderline, and 6.9% think it shouldn't be played. And then I can start us off for the last mode here, which is Reef Clam Blitz. So yeah, I mean, pretty much the things I have to say about the other modes on this map. Layout is pretty much identical. It's the way you fight is pretty much the same on the bridge, under mid, all that stuff. Only real gripe I have with this one is it feels like it's really easy to snowball and get big pushes here, but I don't know, I really like this map. Everything outside of that is just perfect for clam blitz. You have a flank route that isn't too overpowering, but is also a great alternative route that prevents like the pushes from devolving into just brute force special spam. So it's just very balanced. A lot of different weapons are good here. The clam spawns, as far as I know, aren't ridiculous. So yeah, just really good map in general. What do you guys
Yeah,
think?
I think it's definitely one of it's at the top pretty much for Clam Blitz maps along with Snapper. My only really gripe with it is throwing the power clam in from the bottom is horrible. I don't know why that throw is so bad. It's like it feels like a mistake, like they mispositioned the basket or something. Like I don't know why it's so hard to get that in. When you go in from the other side, when you go in from left, it's fine. But when you're trying to throw it in from where the hump actually is, it's horrible. But besides that, yeah, it's a good map. The clan spawns are fine. Uh, it's pretty hard to get a cheese push going, which is a plus for me. Yeah, you can sneak in from the left side, but there's usually always someone watching it if you're playing a good team, so it's pretty hard to pull that off. Yeah, no, I definitely at the top of the list for Clan Blitz for me. It gets a yes for me.
Yeah. Same as zones and tower, that you have to hold control of several areas. You have to have control of bottom ground, the high ground, the right and the left side in order to really win. Good options for locking out, good options for breaking out of lockouts. Overall perfect maps. There is one issue on Clam Blitz, and the thing with it is it's actually a little bit more discreet because of the geometry. But around the Clam Blitz goal, there are 5 different emitters that can shoot out a 4 cluster within throwing distance. But as you heard Laius and Chase say, like I don't notice it because the geometry is a lot harder. You don't really have control of the car and that like right side plat and the street and that left side entrance, like the lamppost area where all the emitters are. If you do, you knock out. So if you get wiped once, you're probably knocked out. But if you don't, it's a lot harder to get those emitters. So most people don't know about it. Most people don't really realize how much they can abuse the clam spawns. Not everyone's looking at the game code and being like, if I time my push at this, perfect time, I'm gonna get 50 free clams. That doesn't really happen as well as the other teams probably collecting them. So
Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty well. This is the most favorable map here. 87.9% think it should be in the list, 5.3 say borderline, and 6.8% say it shouldn't be played. Now, finally, the last map in our list has two modes actually, and that map is Wahoo World. A tale of two different modes for this one. Let's start off with the good map, which is flat zones. Who wants to start us
Yeah,
off?
so I'll start. This mode on this map is good, and the reason it is good is because there is no stupid moving parts in this mode. What do you even call that? The flat? They don't extend, and yeah, the
Flat.
plats don't extend and retract in this mode, which is very, very good. The other modes should take some notes because all they need to do is change that, and the other modes will be good. But for spot zones, yes, they are stationary. The plats they don't move in and out, so that leads to good games. Because you don't have to wait for the timing of the map to reach certain parts. But besides that, this is a very good map. It is range heavy, but it's not bad. Like E-Leader is very good here. Sorry if you guys hear my cat in the background. But yeah, E-Leader is quite good here. I feel like Hydra would be good here too, or Ballpoint, but those aren't used as much just because I think Chargers are the superior option. I like the zone in this map. I like how it's a circle, and I like how it's big. It's not, you can't cheese cap it. Like Baller or Splashdown does not cap this thing. Like you need to have teamwork to cap it, which I like. Yeah, so this map is a plus for me. It's one of the best spot zones maps.
yeah, I think he summed it up perfectly. He hit every point that I had. A+ for me.
Okay, yeah, I agree. I think this is by far the best mode on this map. Only real gripe I have is the distance from spawn to zone seems a little big, but at the same time, you've got good places where you can get an advantage over the defending team when you're pushing back in, so it's not too difficult for you to get back in. Good flank routes. The mid area is very unique and interesting. It promotes a lot of different special variety like curling rush and other specials without making the team fights unenjoyable. But yeah, I think it's a very good map overall. I think this is the only mode on this map that is half decent. All right, let's move on to the only other mode on this map that is being voted on. Oh, I gotta go over the voting percentage first. Yeah, so 75% think this one should be in. 11% think it should be unviable, and 14% are iffy.
Okay.
All right, yeah, but on the Clamblitz, I guess I can start off with this one. Like Chase said for the last one, any mode on this map where the plat is not closed off at all times is just unplayable, at least in my opinion. So the way that it works is it's like every 30 seconds or so it'll expand or
Yeah.
retract. So based on what time you get, so like you're in mid, you're doing this team fight, blah blah blah. Based on what point you win your team fight that starts your push is going to have a different level of success depending on when it happens. It's completely arbitrary. It's just how lucky you are based on the timing of the game, and it's not really something you can plan for. You can't say, "Oh, I'm going to take this team fight at this exact second," and no, you can't. It's the game is going to decide how much you're going to get on that push. And again, like we talked about with Sturgeon, I don't think anything with RNG is really going to I don't think that's good game design. Also, the distance from mid to the goal is a little long, I feel like. I mean, it's this is a map where it's not too easy to make big pushes because of the plat thing that we talked about, which forces you to drop down, take a low ground position while the defense has high ground over you, and also because it's just the distance from mid to the goal is a little bit long, so overall, it's just not fun to play. You're not going to get that many big pushes. The plat kind of ruins this map, I think, more so than the other modes on this map.
Yeah, the whole moving platform thing ruins this map completely for me. It is so dumb that the game ends when the platform is extended. In my opinion, that's the stupidest part. I don't like that, because here's the thing about this map. It's kind of weird. When the thing is retracted, so it's not extended, so you can't cross it, it's hard to score. But when it's open, it's too easy to score. Like there needs to be a fine balance here, but there's not. It's too easy or too hard, and that is stupid in my opinion. And yeah, just the fact that it ends on it extending just completely ruins it for me. So like again, if they weren't moving, this map would be fine. Like I would actually probably like this map, but just because of one feature, this map completely sucks. So it's a no for me. F minus, no.
As a game developer, the design of this map gives me physical pain. You guys keep talking about the extendable bridge, the plat. Why does it spin on the bottom? Why are clams just suddenly appearing? Why is my game dropping frames because it started spinning? Um, yeah, no, absolutely no for me. The high ground and the low ground are like irrelevant. Both of them, like mid is irrelevant almost. Like I, it's awful. I never want to play this map mode.
All right, and I feel like despite the fact that it is overwhelmingly negative, I still think too many people are voting in favor of this map. We got 20.9% of
All
voters
right,
saying that they would like to
my
play on this
faith in
map.
humanity dropped again after hearing that one.
That'll do it. 26.1 think that's borderline. 53 say it shouldn't be in the list. Really, it should be 100, but what are you gonna do? All right, so that wraps up all of the map modes that we were gonna talk about. So real quick before we end things off, I wanted to give us a chance to talk about some of the maps that were not given the opportunity to be voted on, which may be probably better than some of the maps that were in the rotation to be voted on. So I'll just ask you guys right off the bat, are there any maps that you think would be even just decent maps that you think should have been voted on that weren't?
Yeah, Camp Triggerfish Rainmaker? No, just kidding. No.
All right, you know what?
Let's see.
Anchovy zones.
Wait, what?
Anchovy
Anchovy Zones? Yeah,
Zones.
that's one. Was Starfish Zones in there?
No, it was
Yeah, I like
not.
Starfish Zones. I think that would be a good one. And yeah, Anchovy Zones definitely as well. Those are both some. I mean, that's because Zones is good on pretty much every map. But yeah, those maps are pretty good in my opinion.
David, did you have something you want to add to that? Or?
None that I can think of off the top of my head. No.
Yeah. No. There's no like glaring missed opportunities here. Like even with Anchovy and Splat Zones, but Anchovy and Starfish Splat Zones, even with those not being there, like I'm not like sad that those are gone. I was just like they could be there, but I'm not. And there's no hole in my heart that's missing because those are gone.
I mean, yeah, I'm not torn up about the fact that those aren't in there, but at the same time, those are very good maps in my opinion. Like probably better than 75 to 80% of the maps that were voted on. Um, I think Starfish Zones. You could make a case that it's not all that great, but I think Anchovy Zones for sure is one of the best maps in the game on any mode, personally. But I don't know if you guys agree, but. And then the other one that I wanted to bring up that I feel like this map gets I don't know if I'm missing something with this map, and we can talk about it if you guys want to, but I want to talk about Piranha Pit Rainmaker because I feel like no one ever talks about this map. I've never heard anyone complain about it. I've never heard anyone say it's a great map. I just feel like it's kind of there, but at the same time, when I play it, I feel like it should be played more often. It feels like a good map to me. I don't know what you guys think about
Yeah, no,
Piranha Rainmaker.
I agree with you. It's a very like middle ground map, but yeah, I don't know. That map gets like no screen time. I don't know what's up with that. Yeah, I play it too, and it's like I'm not good at that map. Like I always get like a pretty poor KA there, but I don't mind it still. defense on the map can be a little rough. That might be part of the reason why, but I don't know. Yeah, it's fine. Like there's nothing horrible about it.
Okay, David, anything you want to add about that, or?
It's just long. It's just very, very long. That's really it. Nothing else to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering if maybe the reason people don't like it is because it's
Straight line.
CJet or race spam in general. Yeah, is very good there. But I don't know. If anyone is watching this, what do you think about that map? I just need to know what people think of it because I just feel like no one. I don't. I feel like people need to be playing on that more, but they're just not. And I also haven't heard anyone say bad things about it. It's just I just feel like it's kind of like Musselforge zones where it's like there's nothing really bad about it, but no one's talking about it. Speaking of Musselforge zones, that's another map that wasn't voted on. I feel like that could have also been in this list as well. What do you guys think about Musselforge zones? Just real quick, because I feel like that one
Yeah,
is.
I like Musselforge zones. That's a good Dapple dualies map, which is why I like it.
I think it's just like I think Musselforge in general just has like aspects of other good map modes, but like slightly worse. And like I just think that applies with zones.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, as far as I can tell, that's pretty much every map that is either in the voting pool or that we think should be voted on. So that pretty much sums it up. Is there any miscellaneous closing thoughts you guys have about anything that we talked about so far?
I think this year's LUTI map list has good potential, and I think it's good for the community to hunker down on a map list and just keep practicing those maps and really excel at the competitively balanced maps and make an entertaining product.
That's true.
Yeah, I would agree. I think like last Ludi season was about a year ago, I think, and the map list was
Kelp Tour,
atrocious. I mean, I
Kelp
remember
Towers.
we scrimmed on Kelp. Yeah, we scrimmed Kelp TC multiple times, and like I said before, like I think Ludi needs to understand. Like I think they've started to realize this over time, but when you make a map list like that, you're not just making teams that play Ludi play it. You're making everyone in the community play on those maps. Anyone who's in Ludi who's doing a scrim is going to ask to play on those maps. So you're punishing even teams who chose not to play Ludi. Maybe they chose to play like maybe they chose not to play it because of the bad maps, but they still have to play on those horrible maps. So I just think it's if we're gonna have a league like this that is so widely accepted and considered as like the premier Splatoon league at the moment, you can't just limit yourself to the teams that are actually in it. This is something that's going to impact the whole community, especially since these maps that are played in this league, people are going to think, okay, well, this is a very well known and generally well regarded, I think, league. So people see the maps that are being played here, and if they have strict standards on what maps are going to be played and what maps aren't, that's going to set a better. It's just going to set a better precedent for the community as a whole. They're not going to be vouching for maps that aren't in Ludi
Mm-hmm.
if Ludi isn't continuing to push maps like Kelp DC, Moray Clams, other stuff that just shouldn't ever be played. So overall, I think this is a big improvement. Um, Vastly superior to last year's Ludi map list for sure. Even with the maps that really shouldn't be in this, it's already such a drastic improvement, and I'm pleasantly surprised. Honestly, I'm really glad to see that they've taken the steps to improve this. And again, still, Goby TC should never be played ever. Um, Camp zones is iffy. Wahoo clams should never be played, and skipper clams should never be played either. But if Ludi does take this voting seriously and actually go with what the community wants, none of those maps are going to be in this rotation. So overall, really good system. Um, Again, there's a few maps they left out that I feel like easily could have been viable, but yeah, really good system. The maps they picked, generally, they picked maps that are played often and are considered good maps by the community. And the ones that aren't have received overwhelmingly negative reviews. So there's a few maps that are a little bit testy, a little bit up and down as far as what people think of them, like Albacore. I think Manta Maria also falls in that category as well, but as a whole, I'm really happy with what they've done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for this upcoming LUTI season.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna be playing it or not, but
Yeah.
well, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but yeah, maplist is definitely taking a big step forward. So I guess that's it for the content portion of this. So you guys want to just plug your channels or whatever? Because I know David, you don't really make like content, but just plug your Twitter.
Oh, David,
You gotta
YouTube
plug that
channel?
Twitter. He does have a
Yeah,
YouTube, but do you post Splatoon?
I don't really do Pokemon. I post Pokemon content, but
Got
recently
it.
I've been streaming on Twitch and trying to get some Splatoon content there. So yeah, follow me at Dave Fernick.
All right, and then what about your Twitter as well?
Um.
Gotta get that cloud up on Twitter.
Oh. Yeah. Plug your Twitter.
I don't even remember my Twitter username. I changed it so much. It's like
Oh, let's
Oh
look at it
no.
right now. Let's
David the Armor Monkey. I think.
it's
Yeah,
Daphne the Armor Monkey. Yep.
there we go.
All right, well, don't worry about it. I'll plug it in the description of the video either way. So yeah, Chase, you can talk about your stuff as well, because I know you're like more
Oh
well known than
yeah.
either of us are in any of this.
Yeah. Check me out on YouTube at Chase247. It's actually Chase. It's Chase Space 247, but it should come up. If you just type Chase 24/7, it's fine. And then my Twitter is Chase_247_. But no one cares about the Twitter. Follow me on YouTube. I post a lot of content. So yeah, thank you guys for listening through this. What was this? Was this 3 hours?
Two
I felt like I think it was
2
3 hours
hours
long.
and 56 minutes right now. So yes, this was almost 3 hours. If
Okay.
you somehow decided to watch us talk about maps for 3 hours straight, then thank you, because we need
Yes,
more.
I applaud you.
Yes, my respect has been earned by you.
Eh,
All right, well, that pretty much wraps
okay.
things up. Thanks to both of you guys for doing this. Thanks to David for the idea. It was a great idea. I'm glad we did this.
Yep.
Hopefully we can do more stuff like this in the future. Anytime you guys want to do something like this, just hit me up. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have. Thank you guys for watching, and
All right.
yeah, see you guys
Farewell.
later.
Bye.